Gang, what's up? Aaron here, Canadian Looney. Let's get right into it. There is no question period today. That's a weird one. They canceled it. A lot of other crazy shenanigans have been going on. Let's take a look and a listen to what has been happening recently in Canadian federal politics. We're going to hit up a bunch of committee clips, like some really interesting things that have been happening there in the House of Commons, in the committee meetings. Anyhow, thank you all for watching. Smash the like, hit subscribe. Good morning, everybody. Thank God it's Friday. What a weird thing. They're on vacation for 6 weeks following this. What are we going to do? We'll figure it out. Let's get right into this. I think this is how we do it.
You're saying that they should move on to the study of bail.
Yeah.
They were supposed to finish clause by clause on the C9 last Tuesday, so why not just allow that work to get completed at committee rather than constantly requesting to move on? It's next on the docket, so you could have been there. This committee could be there right now.
I know, but the Liberals keep blocking it. We've moved 17 times unanimous consent to move to the bail law. But Canadians were telling us that the real... Sorry.
You hadn't brought up so many requests.
I didn't
the
interrupt
committee
you.
would already be there.
Are you ready for an answer? All right. So we could have been, we should have had Liberal bail repealed about 5 months ago, but Liberals delayed the introduction of it. And over the last 48 hours, they've blocked 17 attempts to bring forward their own bail law. When Canadians said there was a problem with crime, the problem they had was that murderers, rapists, car thieves, extortionists were being released under Liberal bail. The problem wasn't that they believed that we needed to have police and prosecutors be in places of worship to make sure that clergy don't quote religious texts. And that's why the Liberals have got their priorities wrong. We should be going after car thieves, murderers, and rapists by repealing Liberal bail. So I'm calling on Mr. Carney, let's stop blocking your own bail law. Let's get Liberal bail repealed now so that we can have safety on our streets. Thanks very much.
Some of you, and I salute you, have been Liberals your whole life. Yeah. Some of you apparently came back from the dead to be Liberals here tonight. Others, like me, are new to politics. I'm not a politician. Others are new to politics. I am now. Yes, you're right. Some may have just joined our party. Some, like literally, just joined our party. So let's give a warm welcome to our newest member of the Liberal Party, Michael Ma,
The loser,
the MV,
the
the
sellout,
Union, Martinville.
Goodness gracious, give me a break.
Wow, such a big welcome. Thank you. Thank you. All I want to say is Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and a great 2026 coming to all of you. Thank you, and enjoy the party tonight.
Amazing. Thank you, Michael. All right. Chris D'Entremont. Chris D'Entremont. Chris, I want to thank you for bringing your experience, your ideas, your energy to our common mission of protecting safe communities, of growing a strong economy, of creating new opportunities for families in Nova Scotia and right across Canada. I hope you were up for the Taoiseach. Chris and Michael, I mean, look at this crowd. Your family. We're all over for Christmas. You are going to have a much better time spending Christmas with us than Christmas with the cranks. We are all about Santa, not about the Grinch. And Liberals, we welcome people from every demographic. We span generations. In fact, I found out recently that I am generationally fluid. My Spotify listening age is 44, which is young, by the way, if you're my age. So for those, a product surely of playing Coda Pirate and Down with Webster at our rallies.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Minister, for coming to join us today. I really appreciate your.
We're into some committee action now. Let's get this going. We've got the Minister of the Environment, Julie DeBrusen, in the hot seat. She's brutal.
And thank you, Mr. Moffat, for joining us. I understand congratulations are in order. Your portfolio has been topped up and increased, so congratulations. I'd like to pursue some of these thoughts on the industrial carbon tax that you're laying out. What is the anticipated annual take of carbon tax nationally every year?
What is the anticipated annual
revenue, to the federal coffers?
It doesn't add to federal coffers.
So where does the money go?
It goes back to the province or jurisdiction where it's collected, and then that is often paid back to industries. In fact, if you would like, I can give you examples. But I can give you examples of actually how, for example, Alberta has used it to catalyze carbon reductions in industries.
But so industries pay this. Different types of industries, different types of companies pay this carbon tax. Into wherever it goes.
Yes, but it does not come to the federal coffers.
It does not come to the federal government, but it goes to a bucket. How much is that do we anticipate annually? Like, aggregated together, is it $1,000, $1 million, $1 billion, $10 billion?
Well, this depends, because there are different ways, right? For example, if they're going to, they also can buy credits from one another, which is why you will hear.
So there's money traded, but in aggregate, how much money are we talking about annually?
So I'm not focused, when we do it, we're focused on making sure there's an effective system that industry understands what their credit prices are.
But still, the scale of it is what I'm trying to get at, not the machinations of it, but the scale.
But what I'm saying is the scale is actually that it covers currently about 39% of Canada's total GHGs. And
but how many dollars does that mean?
But just I'm trying to explain that this is a regulation that's been reviewed by the Supreme Court of Canada, which has as its goal the reduction of emissions. That's relevant to my line of questioning. My line of questioning is related to how large of a component of the Canadian economy is this? And if it's small, that's fine. I don't care. It's just $1 billion, $10 billion? It's just not calculated that way, so I can't.
But it has to have an impact in order to follow with your logic. Otherwise, it's a non-sequitur. So it has to have some economic impact and imperative for a company to act.
It creates an incentive. As I said, it doesn't cover all of their emissions.
Doesn't matter. How much of a fiscal incentive is it?
But to be clear, that does matter. Because if they are performing at a lower emissions rate, they actually make money from the credits.
Fair enough. Then it's still, in aggregate, there's a fiscal impact to the economy. Right?
But there isn't,
because it's a driver internally in the economy. I get that. But just how big is it? How big is the impact to the economy? Like, what is the incentive?
Believe
we can pick a number. If we want to pick $10 billion, I'll pick $10 billion, and then we can proceed with the line. So what sort of industries pay this?
So two things that I'll say. First of all, I just want to make sure that we don't fall into the thought that this is a negative impact on the economy, which is, I feel like, the way the question is framed.
We'll see. That'll bear out in time. What kind of industries pay?
So the way that the regulation is set, we don't decide which specific industries. For example,
some examples. Just some example of a company or an industry or sub-industry that might pay.
So if I was going to use an example, just because the president of Algoma Steel was talking just recently about it, it would apply to, for example, steel. It could, and he said specifically that that it actually, with the changes that he is receiving to be able to move to electric arc furnaces, makes his industry, his specific business, more competitive.
Gives him an incentive to go to electric arc, away from blast
But
furnace.
it makes it also that his business, getting electric arc furnaces, is more competitive.
Under that regime because there's an economic incentive.
No, actually, it just makes it that his product's more sellable.
Because of an economic incentive. Okay, so if it's steel, and steel is incentivized to go to a different regime, different type of technology to be produced, where does that steel go? Like, where does the money come from for that company? Who are their customers?
Well, I am not the person who is working through the books, but maybe
Could you, like...
Look, why don't I actually just quote the president, because he's
if
perhaps
you'd like to table
best
that, that would
speak to.
fine, but that's going to take time in my line, and I don't have a lot left.
Well, okay.
So I would argue steel goes to just about every other industry in Canada, which is going to be a higher price because there's an economic incentive to produce steel under a different kind of regime with electric arc furnaces versus blast furnaces. So those customers then have to come up with more money, and I find it rich that this then is being done without taking any contemplation of our largest competitor in the world that has no such system in place like this in the United States.
Well, first of all, I will go back to the president of the company specifically said that it makes it more competitive, but also studies show if you're talking about how much you're talking about, there was an assessment that a stainless steel fridge would cost 12 cents more.
Right, but how many millions of dollars of steel are produced in Canada every year?
But what I'm trying to say is it doesn't actually increase the cost to Canadians.
How much steel is in a fridge? How much steel is a component of the fridge? It's marginal, right? And my point is that this puts Canada in a disadvantaged position vis-a-vis the United States.
Thank you very much.
Competitively.
Thank you very much.
The
floor is yours.
Chair and Minister, your example you used initially was Algoma Steel, and you talked mainly about the corporate advantage, the corporate competitiveness in your transition plan, but you didn't mention anything about the mass layoff. And in fact, I've never heard anything yet about the transition of the workers. 900 workers from Local 22551 will be laid off. 150 union workers of United Steelworkers will be laid off in a mass layoff. Have you done an assessment of how many workers overall nationally will be laid off under your transition plan?
So that is a mashup of many things that don't accord one with the other. And so I will say that, first of all, as we head into this holiday season and we see the layoffs that have happened at Algoma, we should absolutely be thinking about those workers and having them at the heart of what we're, at the heart of what we're doing as we face into U.S. tariffs.
Yes, that's my point. No, that's my point. That's my point. This is the first time you've mentioned workers because of my question. But in that same vein, when you're talking about Algoma Steel and the transition, have you assessed the amount of activity that will take place in other countries that will not use arc furnaces to produce steel? And I'm talking about Russia, China, United States that don't have the same environmental standards. And yes, I understand China and Russia are under sanctions under Canada, but they're still competitors. And so globally, will the emissions increase or stay the same under one facility in Canada going to arc furnaces?
So two pieces, and I think I just really want to clarify that Michael Garcia, the president of Algoma Steel, said specifically that the industrial carbon price was not a problem for him. He did point out that the tariffs from the United States were a problem, but I think that we need to make sure that when we're pointing fingers about what are the problems that are being faced by our steel industry, the problem is the U.S. tariffs.
What about
not
the second?
The industrial
what about my
and
question specifically? What about my question specifically on other countries that will pick up the slack, that will not use arc furnaces or do not have a climate action strategy or do not have a carbon tax?
So why don't I actually go to his words about that, because he deals with that. He said, when we convert to electric arc furnaces, our carbon intensity will be 70% lower, so we'll actually have an advantage versus our competitors in both the United States and Canada that are making blast burner steel that have a much higher carbon intensity. So we see that as a competitive advantage. That's not me making up these words. This is what the president of that company
are you saying
said.
that United States, China, and Russia will not use coal, for example, to produce steel as opposed to what Algoma is going to do?
So what I'm saying is that, first of all, when you look at what the actual industrial leader said in that case, it makes them more competitive. And what we see when we have trade partners with whom we're trying to build trade, like the EU, like the UK, they're putting in border adjustments. That actually means that if our steel is lower carbon intensity and has an industrial carbon price on it, it is actually has better access into those markets.
I understand that, but China...
No, but you are talking about our market advantage.
I'm talking about our competitors when they're producing steel, and it's well known that China has been building 2 coal plants per month. And now they're trying to frame it as how they're going after clean energy, when in reality, they're actually producing almost over 50% of global emissions. And so as we transition, I mean, all credit to Canada. You are trying your best to reduce emissions, but we're talking about global emissions. And the United States is one of the biggest global emitters in the world. China is one of the biggest global emitters in the world. Russia is one of the biggest global emitters in the world. And by us taking our own producers out of that equation actually creates a gap that will be filled by our competitors that don't have the same environmental standards as us. Minister, do you agree with that statement?
100% no, because I am telling you that the president of the company that actually makes that steel...
You know what? The president of the company is not here. You're here. You're in charge of the Climate Action Plan. And I'm talking about other countries that don't have the same environmental standards as Canada. And they will actually produce more steel not using arc furnaces.
I guess I'm just going by the facts about what our trade markets are, what they are looking for in low-carbon products. And you seem to be making up things for which I have not seen that evidence.
You're telling me that China is not one of the biggest global emitters in the world?
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister, and thank you for appearing today. As the Minister well knows, I often advocate for the constituents in my riding of Newfoundland and Labrador, particularly as it relates to our offshore oil and gas sector, which has had some tremendous challenges over the last number of years. And so, of course, I've reached out to them in preparation for this meeting today, asking them what their perspective was, professionals within this industry. And I'm glad that you made the comments about competitiveness, because that's extremely important to the industry. Now, they're warning that the proposed $170 carbon price is completely out of step with international norms. Examples, U.S., Russia, and China have none of these industrial carbon prices at all. So how does your department reconcile these massive competitiveness gaps with the claim that you want to remain a desirable jurisdiction for offshore development?
First of all, thank you for that question. I think it's really important that we all, bring the voices from our communities forward. And I certainly, over the past years, especially in my work as Parliamentary Secretary to Natural Resources, worked on the agreements with Newfoundland and Labrador for the development of offshore wind, in addition to, under the agreements, the Atlantic Accords, adding in. So I'm just saying there are many different opportunities off of Newfoundland and Labrador.
Yeah, but specifically the offshore is very, very important. And I know the people in my riding want to know the answer to this question. So, I mean, sure, great, we have to do all things, but specifically, I'm curious to know what your answer is on this industry and on this point.
So, first of all, I'm not sure that any of us want to be using as our example of a competitor, a country against which we have sanctions like Russia.
Okay, no, fair enough. So Guyana has $20. So and they're one of their closer competitors. So sure, we can use that one as an example. That perfect. I'm happy to bring another country into that equation.
There were two pieces that I would say to that. The factoring in, we are now in the budget committed to actually working on the trajectory for the next decades of the headline price past 2030. So, and you know, that one is part of a conversation that we'll have to have no, but I'm just saying, like, that is going to be a conversation that we'll have to have with provinces and territories and industry.
So what I'm really hearing you saying then is that, you know, the government is opening to modifying those rates then in the face of provinces coming back and saying this is completely unreasonable given the competitiveness of the countries that we're competing with?
What I was saying is that we are going to be working on what the trajectory is for the future decades, and we will take in advice. But
does that component matter? I'm sorry, I don't. Yeah. I have limited time,
But if I can say, I'm just disagreeing with you that it makes the industry less competitive. And we are in a world where, when we look at the different markets that we are trying to sell into, even there are big trading blocks that have border adjustment mechanisms. It's just something we're going to have to face into as we sell into these different markets.
Okay, so
I would add, in a world where we see people moving towards low carbon right across, it would be in the best interest of all of our industries to be the lowest carbon for whatever product we sell.
Yeah, sure, fair enough. But I think, they just want to know, are you going to consider this in terms of your decisions moving forward and bring in that price? Like, if they remain uncompetitive, because you said in your opening statements that competitiveness was important. So are these concerns going to be given consideration as you move forward? Or are they just like completely dismissed? Does it not matter? Because these are industry experts, right? And again, a very important industry to my riding. So I want to know, is it going to be given consideration, and will you walk those rates back based on these concerns that are coming forward?
So we always work with all of the provinces and territories on how we move policies forward. But I will also point out that I'm not agreeing that it makes the industry less competitive. That is where we disagree. Markets around the world are putting on carbon prices, and they're looking for low carbon products.
The proponents are like, they're just wrong. Like, you're just completely dismissing their concerns, though?
I'm disagreeing with the way you're framing it, but I'm also saying I'm open to talking.
It's their words,
I am open to talking with everyone
enough.
about it.
Thank you, Minister. Chair and Minister, I appreciate that you've tried to bring up productivity, competitiveness into this conversation. I think that is important, but only a Liberal could come here and try to get us all excited, to get Canadians excited that somehow new higher taxes are going to do so much good for people, families, and businesses in this country. Our main competitors, as has been outlined before, United States, Russia, China when it comes to steel, and many other advanced nations do not have industrial carbon pricing or carbon pricing at all, particularly, as you mentioned, on the trade-exposed sectors. Now, the timing of this is very suspect, to increase taxes. You've mentioned tariffs, the impact that they're having on many of our industries. At a time we have increased tariffs, we have flailing productivity, we have a reduction in the quality of life. We have a massive outflow of Canadian capital leaving this country to find better suitable places to invest their money. And all you've frankly offered is a whole bunch of corporate welfare. So I'd like you to tell me how increasing the price of the industrial carbon tax right now, when all of these other factors are destroying Canadian enterprise in this country, how is now the time to raise taxes? How is that going to increase our competitiveness, and how on earth is that going to increase the productivity of our companies in this country?
I mean, I don't think I agreed with a single piece of it. I'd say only a conservative would be blind to the opportunities we have for the future.
Do you think our country is economically doing well? Or is our productivity good right now?
So, two things. I want to actually refute a whole bunch of things you said at first, but then I will get to that piece too. I am absolutely shocked that the Conservatives are using as an example, a shining example of what our country should be doing, Russia.
Oh, come on, Minister.
Get off. I've now heard it several times, right?
That is not what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say that Russia, America, every other heavy emitting country, and the countries that we have competitive industries with do not have a carbon tax. So try to cherry pick Russia all you want, but the reality is other nations that we compete with don't have carbon taxes.
So it's actually incorrect what you're saying, and I'm just trying to get the right statistic here, but I believe that other than the United States, Canada's 10 largest trading partners after the U.S. all have net zero goals and carbon markets of their own. So
I said competitors, not trading partners. Chinese steel is a competitor.
But we are trying to trade with markets that are looking for low carbon products that have border adjustments saying that they will give preferential.
Michael, like I read about, like, end. To what end, Michael? Like I read about, the notion that we need to, turn to plant-based foods and insect-based protein in the future, and that, meat production and all the cow methane are contributing to the degradation of the environment. But like, what do you see this as a plan, or just as a part of the globalist utopian ideologically blind stupidity? Because farmers do pollute. There is runoff from fertilizer. It does cause algal blooms, for example, in the water, and these are problems. I don't think they're insurmountable problems. But you're pointing to something that's more malevolent and deeper and programmatic, and we don't want to go there without questioning that presumption. I always think if you can explain it with stupidity, you don't have to explain it with malevolence.
Well, as you know, be careful with that one, because sometimes we do have to go to malevolence in this case.
I know we do, yeah.
And I watch your show enough to know you know exactly why this is happening. And let's talk about this. If the Dutch farmers, let's take this as a premise, are the most efficient in the world, or let's just say they're the second most efficient, why would you knock them out of the saddle to get somebody else to produce the food? Where? Indian farmers? Who's going to produce this food in a much less efficient way that would create even more pollution? This is clearly about control. Also, there's something that you never hear in any press that I've heard in the United States is the tri-state city. Tri-state city is this smart city that they're proposing to build between the tri-states are Belgium, Netherlands, and Germany. So this mega city, basically, that would take up all this farmland in that area, and which would bring huge amounts of more people into this area, right? So the tri-state city is something you don't hear much about, but that's another part of this plan. There was a fire about maybe 10 days ago. I went to it right after the next morning, and it's at a picnic distribution center, which is there was an investment, $600 million into this picnic food distribution center from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, coincidentally, and it burned down, right? And so that brought a little, raised some eyebrows. Why did that thing just burn down? There's many of them. There's others in Netherlands that are growing. But the bottom line is the Bill and Melinda, or Bill Gates, is buying up farmland, as you know, all over the place.
I know. He is the biggest private landowner in the United States right now, and the land that he's buying up, he's taking out of food production. And it seems to be because he's obsessed about meat production, at least in part, doesn't believe that that's part of a sustainable future. And so, but I do share your skepticism. It's the same thing happens on the bloody energy front. It's like, well, Australia won't build coal-generating electrical plants, but they'll ship their bloody coal to China, where they're going to build much dirtier plants. And the same thing applies to Canada. If we shut down our energy industry, which our bloody, insane, narcissistic, delusional, traitorous prime minister happens to think is a good idea and seems to be working as hard as he can to manage, all that's going to happen is that we're going to cede the ground to people like Putin, who we also turned into a radical enemy with his hands on the control pump for Europe. I don't see how we could be stupider here in the West if we actually took courses in stupidity and tried as hard as we could. We seem to be doing everything we can to break everything as rapidly as possible. And then I wonder too, has it got to the point where the people who think, that you can't make an omelet without breaking a few eggs, and there's too many people on the planet, think that this is some sort of like needle's eye that we have to go through, all this mass starvation and death, so that we end up with a sustainable population? Jesus Christ, that's a dim and grim scenario. But as you said, why would you take the Dutch farmers out of business when they're so unbelievably hyper-productive and efficient? It's not like there's too much food, especially not if we don't have farmers.
If anything, I would be trying to get a large agricultural institute here in Netherlands to teach other farmers how to be as efficient as Dutch farmers are.
In Canadian federal politics, the Canucks are represented by two separate yet unequal groups: the globalists who sold out and the opposition trying to salvage a country. These are their stories.
Thank you, Chair, and welcome, Mr. Ettinger, and to your colleagues. We are also looking forward to this conversation with you. It's taken a while for us to be able to get you here and to be able to complete yet another study on Canada Post. At your appearance here at committee during our last study, you advised committee members that the government had not approved your strategic plan for a number of years. I think it was 5 years at the time, between 2019 and 2024. As you noted, this past September, the minister made a number of announcements, including a deadline for Canada Post to submit a plan to the department. You referenced that. Has the minister given you any indication, given that he's had the plan for over a month now, what the deadline is for when you can expect his decision on your plan?
Thank you for that question. Appreciate it. We submitted the plan, the transformation plan, I guess people refer to it as the 45-day plan, back on November 7th. It was based on our own planning as well as shaping it around the announcement that he made on September 25th, which we welcome. These are things that we've been talking about publicly for a couple of years in our annual public meetings or in media releases or in our annual reports. So we appreciate that the government is looking at those options to enable us to transform this company going forward. Our plan, we're very confident that our plan, and the basic thrust of that plan, is to create a Canada Post that is better than it is today and more focused on where Canadians' needs are today. That's changed a lot. So there aren't any big surprises in the plan from what we've been talking about openly and publicly. CMBs, postal refreshment and modernization, pricing strategy, service charter changes around letter mail only. So that is the main thing. But we have not heard back from the minister's office at this point. They are reviewing it, but I have not heard any timelines at this point.
Thank you for that. Can you tell me, is anything in the plan that you've submitted, was it already in past strategic plans that you submitted to the government that weren't approved?
Yeah, and to that same point that I mentioned, a lot of the solutions are similar to what we've been looking at for some time. That's why I said there aren't really any surprises in this. It's the same things. And as I said earlier, there are practical things we can do to get our house in order to make us more competitive. If you look at letter mail, of course, we all know it's declining at a rapid rate. And our whole system was built around letter mail. Parcels is also very challenging. We're up against the very best companies in the world who are very agile. So the solutions will not surprise you, but there's more detail in there than we've maybe put out there in the past.
Okay, thank you very much. I just have really limited time, and there are some other questions that I do want to get to. According to its Q3 report, at the end of this month, Canada Post will run out of the $1 billion loan the government provided to you. Last week, officials told us they have been in discussions with Canada Post about approving an additional loan. How much funding is being discussed for this additional loan?
Well, we're in discussions with the government, as we have been frequently over the last year or two. Our CFO, Rendella, has been heavily involved in those discussions, so I'm going to pass that question over to Rendella to respond.
Thank you, Doug, and thank you for the question. Mr. Chair, it is important, and you're absolutely correct, that we ran out of the cash injection kind of this month. We've exhausted that, and that was very important for us to be able to maintain operations. The discussion that we're having with the minister's office at this point in time are not yet finalized, and we're working through the details to ensure that we have sufficient funding to maintain operation and service to Canadians. until the transformation plan is approved and endorsed in due course. That will alleviate, obviously, additional funding around kind of investing in the future of Canada Post.
Has the government indicated when a decision might be made on whether they will approve an additional loan?
We are in constant discussions with the Minister's office on that. We don't have a timeline yet of when that decision will happen.
Thank you.
Yes.
Given that there was no funding in the supplementary estimates, has the government told you that you will have to wait for the next cycle of estimates in order to receive approved funding?
So those discussions are happening at this point in time. What we have at our disposal is credit facilities that we were able to secure after the approval of the corporate plan last year. So we've reported in our annual report as well as our Q3 financial report that we have close to $595 million of credit facilities that we are hoping that we can utilize until that decision is made and that timing is better known.
Are you still expected to repay the $1 billion loan you've been given that you are seeking additional funding?
At this point in time, the MOU is very clear that the cash injection is repayable, as well as according to the MOU, there is a deadline of December 2026 when that will be revisited by the Minister of Finance. At that point in time, a determination will be made whether new terms will be kind of discussed and negotiated. Sorry, I'm cut off.
Thanks very much. We'll go to Ms. Suds, please.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you all for being here with us today. So as we've heard, as we undertook this study, and as Canadians know, Canada Post is certainly in deep financial difficulty. And without real reform, the future of this public service and the jobs that depend on it will be at risk. Postal workers keep our communities connected in many ways, day in and day out, and they keep the corporation strong, and keeping the corporation, strong and sustainable is certainly front and center as we think about ensuring that they can continue to serve Canadians. So with that in mind, and Canada Post being a Crown corporation with a mandate to serve all Canadians, why do you believe that this mandate is still relevant in today's digital economy?
Yeah, thank you. Very good question. In terms of the e-commerce business around parcels, which is where we're focused on for growth, and that market will double over the next 10 years. It's a very high growth market. It is a digital market. We've recently updated our IT infrastructure, and when you order something online to the point that you receive it, it's all digital. So we feel very good about our ability to reshape the company based on the strategies that we have with the ones that we've talked about already today, but also with the digital capabilities that we now have that will enable us to make the customer experience even better for Canadians. And, you know, you're always looking for ways, and we are, to make it easier to navigate our websites and our programs. So we're very pleased with how that has gone. And so there's a lot of digital stuff going behind the scenes that powers this whole company going forward, and we're very pleased with where we are on that.
That's great to hear. And so on that same theme, or in that same vein, you know, we often talk about or think about Canada Post as being vital national infrastructure. And so in that context, how does that shape your future direction or your transformation plan?
Well, we have the foremost network in Canada. We go everywhere, literally every day. Our infrastructure is an advantage for us. We want to be more efficient in that infrastructure, but our commitment is to deliver for all Canadians. There will be changes as we go forward along the lines of what we talked about that will enable us to get our financial situation in better shape, but we fully intend to, as we go forward, invest in the kind of things that will make us even better with our customers. This is all about achieving better service, not less. I know there's been some comments about, cuts and this.
And thank you for the witnesses. But before we get into dollars and deficits, I wanted to talk about the people that are really impacted by the bumps in the road with Canada Post. In my riding, small businesses obviously rely on those checks arriving by mail. And that when those envelopes don't show up, it's not just an inconvenience. It's like, how do you pay payroll? How do you pay your suppliers? And how do you keep the doors open for the next week? And of course, charities. I've heard a lot from charities, the same boat. Their donations come through the mail, and often, $20 from a senior who gives faithfully every year. And so when deliveries would stop, those gifts don't arrive. And the programs people count on get cut. So even that simple act of sending a thank you note or a Christmas letter becomes very difficult. So we know that when Canada Post falters, those groups lose income, they lose supporters, and they lose connection. And the cost is enormous, and Canadians notice it immediately. So I guess my questions are surrounding the idea of how did we get here? Like, it wasn't sudden. We had a lot of warnings, include the Kaplan report, which made it very clear that Canada Post couldn't remain self-sustaining without real reforms. And yet, the Liberals went for 5 years without approving a strategic plan. 5 years of drift, basically, while losses were piling up. I think we're at $5.5 billion now. So, I mean, maybe you can't answer this question, but why do you think the government failed to approve a strategic plan since 2019?
Yeah, thank you for that. I think that's a question better put to the government. But I'll say that we couldn't get aligned is the answer, and it's the same answer I gave a year and a half ago. But I'm pleased that we have alignment at this stage, at least in a strategic sense. And again, we welcome the changes. Those are, in my opinion, exactly what the doctor ordered for us to transform this company, get our house in order, get our finances in order. I wish it would have happened 10 years ago. It didn't. But we're going to move forward with those. We're delighted with those changes, and we hope they get approved. But not only that, with the investments we've made over the years with Albert Jackson, with the ERP program, we can come out of this and rebuild even better than what we would have otherwise.
So that's a bit, my next question is, what impact did that 5-year delay have on your ability to modernize and compete and prevent exactly this crisis that we're in right now?
Yeah, well, certainly we had to be more careful with our spending. There's no question. And in the last few years, we've put in strict budget controls, discretionary spending cuts. As I mentioned earlier, unfortunately, some restructuring of management and so on to get our costs in line with what we can afford. But we're in a very competitive category with some, again, as I said, some of the best operations in the world who are very agile. They're gig-based, some of them, so it's a different model than ours. But we need to compete. We need to be able to invest in our business so we can stay current with them. But I feel like with those changes that were announced and those investments, we have the tools we need now to go forward and transform, and we're ready to do that.
Had you been able to do this 5 years ago, what could we have avoided?
Well, that's hard to predict, but yeah, there were certainly some losses that occurred over the years. There's no doubt about it. I'm just very pleased that we're able to look forward, solve the problem. We're ready to solve that problem. We know how to solve that problem. There'll be things that we all disagree on and components and so on, but these are things that we need to get at now, and we're ready to do that.
So in the plan that you submitted to the minister, does Canada Post actually become financially sustainable, and on what timetable? Yeah.
Yes, it's an ambitious plan, and we've shaped it around the minister's announcement on the 25th of September, as well as our knowledge of the industry and so on. And it gets us to break even by 2030, 5 years from now. And it'll be
paying anything back or not yet?
We haven't yet, but these are repayable loans.
So,
yes.
But with your 2030 timeline, will anything have been paid back yet?
I
I saw some shaking heads, so I'm assuming it's a no.
We're going to need to invest in the company over the next few years in order to do the things that we need to do to make the changes that are going to reduce our costs, going to give us a more competitive position in the marketplace vis-a-vis our competitors. And so there's going to have to be some investment over time. And the minister made it clear these bailouts or injections have to stop. And by the way, I 100% agree with that. They need to stop as soon as possible. But
your interest rates are? Like you were talking about?
I'm afraid that is our time. Mr. Patzer, please.
Thank you very much.
Merci à tout le monde de votre présence. J'aimerais savoir quelle est votre définition de rural utilisée par Post Canada. Pour l'instant, c'est celle qui est en place depuis 1994. Donc, nous suivons les lignes directrices du gouvernement dans ce domaine. Je sais qu'il y a d'autres programmes qui essayent
of rural versus urban, and in our plan, we will look to reflect the latest information from Stats Canada, because the country in 1994, I think we had 29 million people. Now we have 42. Small towns have become cities and so on. Rural areas have become suburban. So we'll want to, there's a lot of areas where it was designated rural back in that time, and now it's very much suburban, almost urban. And we have some duplication with our dealer network and with our corporate stores, and those are areas that we would look at carefully to see where we could reduce some duplication.
Okay, when you go through your rural review, I'm also just going to give you just a couple quick examples. The town of Vanguard, I mean, it's a town of a couple hundred people at the most, but they rely on you guys every single week to send water samples off to Regina for safe water supply. They don't have another carrier as an option. But I mean, that's because it is a very small town, but that's common all throughout Saskatchewan and, quite frankly, a lot of Western Canada to have towns that size. I guess what measures are you going through to make sure that a place like Vanguard doesn't lose its post office, because it really is a lifeline for that community?
Yeah. And I appreciate that. Again, I've lived most of my life in rural Canada. I understand how important the post offices are. So we're going to be very thoughtful and careful how we do that. If there is no other post office, close, then it'll be fine. But and there'll be other criteria, and we'll reveal that when we have further feedback from the government on the plan. But we recognize that how important they are to those communities, and we'll be thoughtful about how we make those decisions.
If you could give a brief answer, though, with the moratorium still in place, I believe there was 515 closures of rural post offices, though, since then. How could that be?
Well, there's different reasons. Oftentimes the postmaster or the postmistress retires and it's hard to recruit somebody to replace them, or the business that they were in shuts down, or people move on to other things. And it's not the easiest role to recruit for, unfortunately, particularly in remote areas. But again, we've said that in terms of postal service, we're going to protect rural, remote, northern. We have 280 flights, air cargo flights, going every week to 140 communities in Canada's north. So we're committed to protecting that service.
So with the $1 billion bailout that you guys received, and I know there's ongoing conversations about another compensation package, I think, from the government, was there a provision in there that prevented executive bonuses above and beyond? Was there a provision in that contract, or when you guys got the bailout?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
And is that something that the government is actively trying to put into a new bailout package?
I'm not aware of that, no.
Okay, and then we've heard a lot of people receiving early retirement offers from the government, whether it's staffers on Parliament Hill, whether it's bureaucrats. I'm just wondering, has Canada Post also received these early retirement offers from the federal government?
No. We're a Crown corporation. We're separate from that. We sometimes take guidance from what they're doing in terms of key policies, but that has not included us in any way, shape, or form.
Okay, thank you very much. When it comes to just really quickly, there's one last point I wanted to ask you about, and that was the Kaplan report was pretty firm in its point about the quote they had was, the notion that the January 2025 $1 billion plus loan lifeline will be repaid requires the complete suspension of disbelief. That's the end of the quote. So, I mean, you've hinted today that you're still trying to repay that loan. What's your thoughts on what the Kaplan report had to say?
Just, I apologize. A very brief answer, if you can.
Okay. The Kaplan report, our union and us had equal access. It was a public hearing. And you might want to listen to that at some point. We put all of our ideas out there, as did the union. I think the report captured that pretty well, and it's I think an objective and frank review of our challenges, our obstacles, and our opportunities going forward. We're pleased that the government supported that, and I think Commissioner Kaplan came up with a very fair review, and we're pleased with that. As far as the repayable loan, that's how we're treating it right now. That's how we're going forward.
Thanks. Ms. Khalidi, please.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you to the witnesses for being here today. I'll start off by picking up on some items that you've said, Mr. Ettinger. You said that the financial situation of Canada Post is unacceptable, that we need to act now. The challenge, I'm trying to wrap my head around this. I mean, there are tens of thousands of people that rely on Canada Post for jobs. There are millions of Canadians that rely on the services that Canada Post provides. When did your organization first realize that there was an issue here, that your business model was not working?
Well, I think if you go back in time, and some of the members around the table were here at that time, we've been studied to death over the years, in a good way. If you go back to 2016, a lot of the findings from that and the predictions of that have unfortunately come true in terms of where we are. COVID also accelerated the problem in the sense that a lot of upstart, emerging, private shippers came out of the woodwork and have done a good job. They're gig-based, which we don't support. We support good-paying union jobs with good benefits and good pay. But they have stolen, and they've got good programs to take a lot of market share away from us. So the key thing for me is that we're moving forward. Would it have helped if it had been years ago? Of course. But now we have a government that's taking this seriously. They're acting on it. We're ready to act on it now. We know what the key strategies are. And even though you've heard them before, like community mail, there's nothing sort of new in this. There's no magic potion that's going to get us to the next place. But trust me, these are big opportunities for us. We're ready to move on them now, and we got the team ready to roll. So, CMBs can provide an even better service, but the savings opportunity there, for example, is $300, $400, $500 million a year once it's at full state. So when you add on the other things that are in the plan, you can see how there's a path to break even. It's an ambitious path, but by 2030, we want to be there. And we think we have the tools now that we can do that.
Thank you. It's interesting that you say that this issue has been studied since 2016 and it's been studied to death, by your words, and yet it seems as if none of the recommendations that committees and Parliament have provided to you have been implemented. So by your admission, since 2016 we knew that there's an issue. It's now at least 9 years later. You've watched other companies grow. You've watched other companies take up space, be innovative, and provide the services that Canadians are looking for. Yes, there are challenges, and I 100% agree with you that the gig workers are not treated properly in those private companies, and that is a place where we need to focus, we need to work on. But at the same time, they are providing the services to millions of Canadians. So as a Crown corporation, hands off from the federal government, you kind of function in your own space. You watched for a decade this transition happening. Why are we here?
Yeah, well, we've been doing a lot, as much as we can do within our control. And we've made some strategic investments. For example, the Albert Jackson Processing Center in Scarborough, a state-of-the-art facility that has enabled us to achieve the highest on-time delivery results in our history. That's one example. And I could go on for quite a while, but I'm keeping my answers tight here. Our updated ERP system, pricing and analytics are critical in this industry. You're pricing based on lanes and origin and destination. It's very complex. You need the right systems to do that. So we've updated our systems. So now that we have the tools, and thanks to the government taking this seriously and getting some of the shackles off us that have been there for a long time, we feel unleashed in a good way in our ability to take these tools and these investments and to turn this company in the right direction for the good of Canada. We know the economy depends upon it. There's no one else that gets to all points in Canada the way we do. We can continue to do that. But the things that we've talked about, even though there's more detail in the plan, are going to get us to that point. And we're confident we can get there.
I appreciate that. So how do you engage with your stakeholders, with your employees, and with the people that receive your services? How do you engage with them so that they know what's going on with Canada Post, so that they know that their jobs are secure, they know that they're still going to be receiving mail, and they know who to contact when there are challenges, who to contact when there are issues that they want to bring to your attention?
Let me interrupt. We are past our time. If you could offer, if you're able to offer a brief.
Maybe I'm not, but yes, I'll do my best. Thank you. Well, we have a full team, a full sales team. We have customer care team. We have a corporate communications team. I get hundreds of emails every day, and we respond to every single one of them, so we understand the issues that Canadians are having. So we have our finger on the pulse in that regard. Again, I believe we now have the tools that we can go forward and get this back to what our original mandate was. Serve all Canadians in a financial, sustainable fashion. I believe we can get there.
Thanks. Mrs. Block, please.
Thank you, Chair. And I will be splitting my time with my colleague, Ms. Jansen. So when it comes to loans and supports which come from the government, whether it's to a Crown corporation like yourself, companies, or even looking at what can happen within departments who need to come back to the government for more funding, can you tell us if under the previous loan or any future loans, are there conditions or provisions to ensure that the money that is being given to Canada Post can't be used to pay executive compensation or management bonuses?
Yes, and that question came earlier. I'm not aware of that, but I'll ask our CFO if there's any inclusion of those kind of terms in the loan agreement.
Thank you, Doug, and thank you for the question. It's a really good one. So when the terms of the MOU were negotiated with the Department of Finance as well as with PSPC, the focus was really to ensure that Canada Post has access to that funding to supplement and maintain our operation, to supplement our operating loss. The covenants really around that MOU is to ensure that we provide the proper evidence and supporting evidence to the Department of Finance and PSPC of what that money is going for, and it's really around funding our operating losses and ensure that we can continue meeting the service to Canadians every day across this great country, and there's no covenants in there tied to executive compensation.
So would there be restrictions written into those covenants that would keep Canada Post from being able to provide bonuses?
There are no restrictions in the MOU pertaining to that particular subject, no.
Okay,
it's really around ensuring that we can maintain operation and service Canadians.
Thank you.
Again, thank you. And I want to come back to the people that, who really feel the consequences of the problem that we're facing here, because when mail slows down or stops, rural Canadians are hit the hardest. Many rely on prescription deliveries, government documents, benefit checks, essential goods that simply cannot be accessed any other way. So in some communities, the post office isn't just a building, it's like the center of life. And it's where seniors stay connected, small businesses ship their products, families keep traditions alive through birthday cards and Christmas presents. So again, I'm left wondering, like, how did we let it get this far? I mean, the warnings were not subtle. The Kaplan report laid it out exactly why keeping Canada Post afloat without structural changes would be nearly impossible. And yet, the Liberal government shackled you until the corporation was effectively insolvent. Now, you've had like $5.5 billion in losses. How have you been financing that? Did you have it in the kitty, or like who are you borrowing that from?
Well, we had a surplus that we were running with, so that helped quite a bit. But I'll come back to the Kaplan report. The Kaplan report, again, was a public hearing, and I thought the recommendations from that were very clear, very strong, and we're pleased the government has picked up on those recommendations and has endorsed them going forward. So we're ready to act on those, assuming the plan gets approved.
Okay, so you said that you were working with a surplus. So the $5.5 billion, that was covered by the surplus completely?
No, that's...
How much of a surplus were you working with?
I don't recall, but, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Doug. Thank you for the question. What Doug was referring to is the, the healthy cash and cash liquidity balance that we had on our balance sheet. At one point, we were a little bit over $2 billion in that particular account that we used to fund and supplement the operating losses over the years.
Okay, so how are you financing this all then?
I want to say mid of 2025, we were using our cash reserves. And so with the repayment of the $500 million bonds that was due in July 2025, that was kind of the first trigger that we would be really, I want to say, quote unquote, running out of cash. And those were the discussions coming out of the Kaplan report that we had with the government to ensure that we secured the $1 billion for us to continue maintaining. So up until, I want to say, July 2025, we were using our cash reserves to fund the operating losses that we had.
Okay, that's all I have.
Thanks very much.
An instance from a couple of months ago in my riding that is very germane to this a few times on this committee, which was that someone under existing criminal laws was arrested and charged for having a swastika mowed into their lawn, and there were no...
So we just dropped over to the Justice Committee. Like, you guys probably have heard, like, somewhere along the line that this Justice Committee is a total mess. We've got a whole bunch of it to show here. It's a total farce. We have some of our favorites and some of the worst villains.
Separate offenses in the criminal code, no additional police powers that were required for that. And this is an issue that, again, was another one of many crime stories that emerged in my riding. And I've had a great many conversations with police chiefs, with frontline police officers. And when they talk about what they want, not one of them has said they want C9. They talk about wanting bail reform. They talk about wanting legislation like we've put forward in the Jail Not Bail Act, legislation that we have tried to, in this very committee meeting, move our attention to because there is a lot more consensus on it. And I find it shocking that the Liberals will get up in the House of Commons, accuse us of blocking bail work while denying the opportunity to get to it, Mr. Chair, and you're silencing me again.
No, I'll give you the floor back. We have a point of order. Ms. Latanzio.
Mr. Chair, again, there's a question of relevancy here today, and I think it's quite clear the Conservatives do not want to proceed with C9. At every opportunity, we are invoking other pieces of legislation, which I am hopeful we'll be able to get to if we can finish with this one here before us. So we are very much looking forward to deal with other pieces of legislation that will come, that are before this committee and that will be forthcoming in this committee. But today, we should be, concluding our works on C9. And it is very clear by the interventions, Mr. Chair. At every turn, we are trying to, stretch the time and not have to deal with this clause-by-clause study. And it's, it's very apparent, and it's, and I would invite the Conservative members on this committee to move ahead so that we can move to the study of other pieces of legislation. You keep this up, we'll never get to it.
Okay, back to you, Mr. Law. I think it goes without saying, the sooner we get through this bill, the sooner we can get to the next bill.
Yeah,
I don't think we need to repeat that over and over again, Mr. Lawton.
My point, and where it is germane, is it is about community priorities, it is about justice priorities, and I find it fascinating that the Liberal government is holding its own bail bill hostage and using that as leverage to force us to advance very bad legislation that will attack the rights of Canadians. I'm sure he does.
Mr. Chair, relevance to Block 2. This has nothing to do with Block 2.
I'm inclined to agree with you, Mr. Housefather. I mean, we've gone...
I cede the floor.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Brock, I believe.
I see what the Liberal members are doing, Mr. Chair. They say one thing to the community at large. They say one thing to the House, and accusing us, including the parliamentary secretary herself, accusing Conservatives of deliberately blocking the study of C-14. I have now brought forth a unanimous consent motion that could have dealt with prioritizing bail and sentencing. To my colleague, Mr. Lawton's point, I'm not done yet.
I know, Mr. Brock, with all due respect, and I really don't want to interrupt anybody. I don't want to.
Well, then why are you interrupting me, Chair? I'm not even done my point. No one has raised a point of order. You're supposed to be independent, Chair.
I am independent, Mr. Brock.
Now when you interrupt me, you're not.
And if you're going to continue making the same point you did on the point of order
earlier. How do you know? Because you're not allowing me to finish my comments.
Same thing.
You're not allowing me to finish my comments, Chair.
You just repeated
the same thing. That's completely inappropriate.
What I'm saying is you need to stick to the amendment we're dealing with right now.
And I'm speaking to that. If you'll let me finish, I will speak to it.
As long as you keep it relevant to the clause we're debating, that'll be fine. Thank you, Mr. Brock. Continue.
Now, Mr. Lawton raised serious concerns about Bill C-9. Now, when we raise concerns about Bill C-9, that is extremely relevant to every clause by clause that we are about to consider. Because he is not narrowing his commentary with respect to Block 2 does not, by definition, automatically mean that he's not speaking with relevancy to the whole purpose behind C-9. That's where I object. That's where I wanted to support my colleague. That's why I wanted to call out these Liberal members who refuse to be honest with Canadians that we need to deal.
No, and I'm going to make this point whether it's a Liberal or Conservative or a Bloc member. If people are going to start calling each other names and using words like lying, this meeting is going to be really long, and I'm not going to put up with this. Well, Mr. Brock,
I'll sit all night, Chair.
And we might be.
Give me the resources, I'll sit all night.
I know better than that, and my colleagues on my right know better than that. Please, I'm just asking for a level of civility here. Do not use words like lying, ascribing sort of motive to people when they haven't been. It's out of line. So, Mr. Brock, you have the floor, but I'm pleading with you.
Well, and I hope, Chair,
I will follow the same rules regardless of who's talking.
Sure, and I take your comments at heart, and I hope that when you hear your colleagues, particularly the parliamentary secretary in the House, using that type of language, that you will pull her aside and you will call her out. Okay?
Except we're not in the House. I can only control the process at the committee.
Right.
So let's move
I
on.
wanted to continue, sir, because I had some grave concerns, and that's why I challenged your decision, because I don't know what authority in the Green Book that you are relying upon to rule that my motion that I just indicated that I wanted to deal with, which was a dilatory motion, was not appropriate to be dealt with here and now. You made that ruling saying the motion, the block motion, takes priority over my motion, and I wanted to ask you, perhaps in consultation with the clerks, what particular authority you are relying upon.
Okay, the issue's been dealt with, Mr. Brock. If that's the end of your submission, we can move on to Mr. Baber.
I'd quickly say, with respect to Block 2, that I'm mindful of the concern that Mr. Fontaine has articulated. However, that could easily be dealt with by an amendment that would remove the reference to the word swastika, as has been asked by various representatives of the Hindu community. However, I'd like to understand from the chair and granted I am new here, nonetheless, this goes beyond our desire to talk about bail. I just want to understand the process here, and that is that if a motion is sought, every member is free. It's I would almost think it's not just a matter of order, it's a matter of privilege that a member of this committee is able to ask for unanimous consent at any point. That would be a dilatory motion. But we have a situation here where the chair ruled, in my view, respectfully, incorrectly, and then is able to sustain his own incorrect ruling with a vote. So effectively what is happening here is you can dispose of decorum, you can dispose of the rules if the Liberal members vote in favor of doing such. And in that case, what's the point of having any rules? And so I'm asking the chair, please, to allow Mr. Brock to move his motion, and let's have a vote. Let's deal with C-14, with bail and sentencing. Let's deal with that right now. But to vote to effectively to suspend the rules, to continue with this terrible piece of legislation, C9, is not appropriate.
Okay. My ruling, to be clear, was that it was an inappropriate time to make that motion. If you or Mr. Brock or others want to make a motion at an appropriate time, that's different. But we have already moved on from that issue. So if you have other submissions on this amendment, the floor is yours. If not, we can move on to Mr. Gill.
Could you please clarify to me what is appropriate time and what is not appropriate time?
Well, okay.
He can move a motion at any time.
Your colleague back there has the green book. Mr. Gill?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. And I would like to talk about what I am hearing in the riding where I represent. And every single person I'm speaking to is talking about that we should be looking after C-14 first, because bail and sentencing is very important for all of us. And we all agree to a point that this is the legislation we have to put forward. And now we are delaying, and every single day we are delaying is causing problems in the neighborhoods, on the streets.
Point of order.
Mr. Chang?
How is this relevant to the clause by clause of C9?
It's not.
It is relevant, sir.
Well,
Chair,
no, because you're talking about a different piece of legislation. I'm imploring you, if you want to talk about C9, which is what we're here debating, please do so. I'll give you all the time you want. We have unlimited resources as far as I'm concerned.
I'm coming to it.
Okay, but you haven't addressed it yet.
So injecting me
in the circumstances,
for these
Mr.
kind of
Chang's,
point of orders, then I would not be able to
Mr. Chang's point of order, I've deemed appropriate. I'm going to give you the floor back. If you want to talk about this bill and this amendment, please do so.
Yeah, and it is important for us to understand what we are hearing at the ground level reality, and then we have to work accordingly. Our main purpose is to look after what people are in need at this point of time, whether it's C9 or C14. And you know, and we all know, in fact, that extortion calls are coming every single time. You know, gun shootings are happening every single day. People are scared. You know, families are being targeted. Businesses are threatened. These are the things that we have to look after. And I would suggest strongly that we should be looking after C-14 right now, and we have to support the motion presented by my colleague, Mr. Brock, and we have to move forward on that one.
Relevance again.
Mr. Chang?
Relevance.
I agree. Mr. Gill, you're still not talking about this bill or, more specifically, this amendment.
Mr. Chair, if that is the case, then I'll cede my time and then move on. But actually, you know, we should not be stopping anyone to speak when we are talking about the important legislation that need to be discussed at this committee meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Gill. Okay, any other further submissions on Mr. Fortin's proposed amendment? No? Okay, so before we put it to a vote, let me just remind you what I said at the outset. If BQ2 is adopted, Lib 1, CPC 6, and CPC 7 cannot be moved due to a line conflict. Okay, so we'll put it to a vote now.
Yes. On amendment BQ2, I will go with Madame Latenzio?
No.
Monsieur Osfather?
No.
Madame Dillon? Mr. Chang?
No.
Mr. Brock?
No.
Mr. Lawton?
No.
Mr. Baber?
No.
Mr. Gill?
No.
Mr. Fortin?
Oui.
Defeated 1-9.
All right, amendment defeated. Thank you. Okay, so now moving on to Lib 1. So I will give the floor to Mr. Housefather.
Chair, this is a simple amendment. The Hindu communities and some other communities, the Jain community, view the swastika as a holy symbol in their culture. We can refer to the Nazi Hakenkreuz, which is the symbol that used by the Nazis without using the word swastika in the English version of the bill. And so my amendment, all it does is remove the word swastika from the English version of the bill. And I hope that this is something that we can all agree on, given the community's representations. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Housefather. Any other submissions on that? No? Okay, so we'll move on to vote on Lib Amendment 1.
Okay. On the vote?
On the vote.
Madame Latenzio?
In favor?
Monsieur Housefather?
In favor?
Madame Dillon?
Oui.
Mr. Chang?
Yes.
Mr. Brock?
Yes.
Mr. Baber?
Yes.
Mr. Lawton?
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Gill?
Yes.
Mr. Fortin? Unanimous.
Carried?
Yeah, unanimous.
Okay, amendment carried, which takes us to CPC 6, which I believe is Mr. Brock.
And please read it out.
Hold on, yeah, hold on.
There is a note.
Mr. Lutz.
Sorry. Yeah, hold on. Oh, yeah. Sorry, just before you get the floor, Mr. Brock. If CPC 6 is adopted, CPC 7 cannot be moved to a line conflict. Mr. Brock, do you want to speak to this?
Actually, it's Mr. Lawton's motion.
Sorry, Mr. Lawton.
Amendment.
Thank you. So we have raised in the course of our study of C9, study that has been sadly shortchanged because of liberal obstruction, that there are grave concerns with a number of sections of this bill, how it will affect civil liberties, how it will affect, in some cases, the very communities that the Liberal government claims it will protect. And there have been several concerns raised specifically about the section on hate symbols. And we will be discussing those more thoroughly when we get to the clause at hand. But if we are to, as a committee and as a parliament, enumerate hate symbols, symbols that have vile meaning, symbols that carry a death toll that often bring up a lot of trauma to various communities, we need to be thorough with it. So I am proposing the following amendment, that Bill C9 in Clause 4 be amended by adding after line 3 on page 2 the following: B.1, the communist symbol known as the hammer and sickle, or B, by replacing line 5 on page 2 with the following, scribed in paragraph A, B, or B.1, that it is likely to be. So in layman's terms, this is adding the hammer and sickle, the communist insignia, to the list of hate symbols. Communism has a death toll of 100 million people around the world. People have died as a result of dangerous and harmful ideology perpetrated by that. I've had a number of concerns raised by people who have lived under communist rule in Cuba, in Eastern Europe, people who see this as being an incredible evil that needs to be stamped out. The Soviet Union under Joseph Stalin from the 20s to the 50s saw some of the worst mass repression in history and mass killings, from the Great Purge to Gulag forced labor camps, collectivization and terror famine, a death toll in the Soviet Union of up to 27 million. You have in China under Mao Zedong, the Communist Party carrying out massive repression, causing the deaths of tens of millions through executions and labor camps and man-made famines. You have Cambodia under the Khmer Rouge from 75 to 79. One of the worst episodes of mass killing in the history of the 20th century, with up to 2 million people killed, including, that's around 25% of Cambodia's population. So if we are to describe what hate symbols are in law, we need to acknowledge the death toll of the hammer and sickle. So I move this amendment for consideration, that it be added to the list. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lawton. Anybody else? Mr. Barber?
I have to give it to my friend, Mr. Lawton. really. As some committee members have heard by now, I was born in the Soviet Union, and I lived in the Soviet Union until 1989. And frankly, when I look at the hammer and sickle, I'm scared. I appreciate Mr. Housefather's previous amendment, and I appreciate his sentiment, as we both come from the same community with family who was deeply affected by the Holocaust. But I can tell you that my family has also been significantly affected by communism. And I frankly do not see much of a distinction between the two. The hammer and sickle represented collective oppression. If I could maybe summon my thoughts here, this is definitely interesting. I'm not sure if Mr. Lawton mentioned that it is estimated that subsequent to the World War, more than 20 million Soviet citizens who were murdered by the communist regime. And it wasn't just confined to Jews, it was everyday people, Ukrainians, intelligentsia, anyone who had any type of microphone, press members, educators. And so I view it as a hate symbol, and I believe that it is a hate symbol because it drives the extreme of collectivist ideology, where the state says, not my way or the highway, but my way or murder. And I hope that all my friends from around the table will support this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Weber. Any other discussion on that point? No? Okay.
We're going to vote?
Yeah, there's no more? No, we're going to vote. Okay, so we're on
CPC 6.
Okay, Sal, CPC carry. CPC 6 carry, sorry.
Okay. On the vote? Yes, so Madame Latenzio? Mr. Housefather?
Against.
Madame Delin? Mr. Chang?
Against.
Mr. Brock?
Yes.
Mr. Baber?
Yes.
Mr. Lawton?
Yes.
Mr. Gill?
Yes.
Mr. Fortin?
No.
Defeated 5-4.
Okay, so CPC 7, which is Mr. Brock this time, I believe, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, CPC 7.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Yeah, so the majority, if not all of us at this committee are lawyers. We can all think back to first-year law when we took statutory interpretation, and the overriding rationale that I remember so long ago, several decades ago, was to always seek clarity when drafting laws. And it's no more important when it comes to the Criminal Code of Canada. In my view, after some almost 2 decades of prosecuting and about 14 years of defending, as the criminal code currently exists, there are so many areas that really require significant editing. So what I bring to the table as a parliamentarian now is the ability to ensure that there are no gray areas when it comes to statute interpretation, that we strive and we look at the criminal code in terms of what's black and what's white. And what is existing right now in C9, specifically subparagraph 2.2 sub C, as worded, a symbol that so nearly resembles a symbol described in paragraphs A and B that is likely to be confused with that symbol. I don't know what that means. It is so vague. There is no definition section as to what a like symbol would mean. What does likely to be confused with mean? Would that be an objective standard? Would that be a subjective standard? So in terms of the rationale for the amendment that I seek, it's to seek precision, to seek clarity, and to remove that type of language goes a long way. Thank you, Chair. That's my explanation.
Thank you, Mr. Brock. More than anything, you just reminded me how old I am. Mr. Baber, over to you.
I actually remember being taught over breath. It was by a former cabinet Liberal minister, Mr. Bentley, taught me first-year criminal law, and he made the criminal law come to life, for me at least. Of course, as the chair knows, I did not become a criminal attorney, but nonetheless, I appreciate Mr. Brock's input here. So if I just look at the section, and if we could please read it, and if I could please ask my Liberal colleagues to look at subsection C, which is what Mr. Brock's amendment is targeting. A symbol that so nearly resembles a symbol described in paragraph A or B that it is likely to be confused with that symbol. So my point is very simple. If it can be confused, then it should not be criminal. I'd like to offer an example. Some folks might say that if you take out the language inside the Canadian Tire triangle, it might resemble a symbol used by the Hamas terrorist organization. They sometimes use a triangle to indicate who the next target ought to be. God forbid. I would say I could probably get around that because that might be incitement to violence, right? Mr. Housefather, ironically, you could probably say that the Hamas triangle is incitement to violence. But I don't want to be watching a Christmas commercial for Canadian Tire thinking that it might be confused with a Hamas triangle. So may I suggest this amendment is really made in good faith to try and not be overbroad. And again, if it is likely to be confused with the actual symbol, then the word confused in and of itself should allow, not only is it confusing, it should allow for some degree of latitude and not be criminal. And also, maybe we ought to think about some first principles, as Labour Minister Bentley would probably say. We're talking about criminal conduct. And we should be very, very clear not to criminalize conduct unless it is clear that it's criminal conduct. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Baber. Anybody, Mr. Housefather?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate that, and I appreciate these last two Conservative amendments, which I think have been made in very good faith. The first one, just to be clear, Mr. Chair, we had no testimony to the effect that the hammer and sickle should be included, and there's a number of others like the Ku Klux Klan symbol. You know, I think this has to go to thought process to add other symbols rather than just pick one and not another. So that's why I voted against that one. This one I think is much more compelling in terms of a discussion about it. My issue is that I think what this is trying to achieve is the opposite. I think what this is trying to achieve is that there is a terrorist group, they have their symbol, and then they manufacture, because they know that the law has prohibited the display of the symbol, they themselves distort the symbol by one tiny iota so they can argue it wasn't the symbol. And the point of, I believe, this section is to capture that. And so I would like to ask the officials who are here, presumably this was drafted by the Department of Justice, can you explain what the intention is of this section?
Please go ahead.
Thank you for the question. And so, yes, confirming that the intention really is to capture symbols that are defined in paragraph A and B, so symbols principally used by or associated with a listed entity or the Nazi Heckenkreuz or Nazi double sing rune. If there's a slight modification, for example, if the flag of a terrorist entity is a different color background, that if it's displayed for the purpose of promoting hatred against an identifiable group, well, they're not precluded from using that offense to prosecute. So it's really on a technical basis, not excluding symbols that willfully promote hatred.
Sure, and then I'll give the floor to
Just to clarify then, the goal of the way this is worded by our experts, presumably at the Department of Justice, is not to catch a different symbol that is not included in A and B. It is to take only the symbols in A and B where there is a deliberate attempt to distort that symbol in order to avoid or circumvent the law by the person using that symbol. It is not to catch a symbol inadvertently. Is that correct?
So sorry, that is correct. It is to capture slight variations, modifications, where otherwise that symbol, it presupposes the definition of the symbols in paragraph A and B. It doesn't create new symbols. Is that helpful? Does that respond to the question?
Yes, thank you very much.
The member for Burnaby Central is rising on a point of order.
All right, gang. So check this out. This is little Wayne Chang. I don't care about what religion you are, what color, whatever. Like, I don't care about any of that nonsense. Like, if you're a good person, you're a good person. This little Wade Chang is a rat, and he hides behind all the woke bullshit. Watch him flip out here. It's very interesting.
Mr. Speaker, I rise on a point of order. Bullying, discrimination, homophobia, racism, and hate have no place in this House. And I repeat, bullying, discrimination, homophobia, racism, and hate have no place in every corner of Canada. During the Justice Committee on Tuesday evening, I experienced mocking comments directed at the way I speak English and other remarks that undermined and attacked my intelligence. In addition, a non-permanent member moved my nameplate without my permission. These actions...
Order. This is a point of order. I will hear the point of order, and if there are other interventions afterwards, I will hear. I will ask the member to resume.
Resume. Okay. These actions, whether intentional or not, undermine the standard of respect and decorum expected in parliamentary committees. They affect not only my ability to participate fully, but also the principle that all members of this House, including those from minority and newcomer communities, deserve to be treated with fairness and respect. I ask you to remind all members, permanent or substitute, that committee proceedings must be conducted with courtesy and professionalism, and that all materials such as nameplates should not be moved without the members' consent. Upholding this standard ensure that all members of this House can contribute fully and effectively, and that our committees reflect the dignity of this House. Finally, I respectfully request an apology from the Member of Parliament for Elgin St. Thomas, London South, the Member of Parliament for Sherwood Park, for Saskatchewan, and the Member of Parliament for Peace River, Westlock, so that our committees can continue to function fairly and with dignity. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Here, here.
Here. I thank the honourable member from Burnaby Central for his intervention. It would be a good time to remind all members of the importance of upholding the high standards of this place in committees. Further, I would add that the matter raised is a matter for the committee. The committee has the opportunity, the member has an opportunity to raise it in committee, and then the chair, the proper course would be for the chair to report it back to the House. But I thank the member for raising the matter. Resuming debate. Please do debate. The honourable member for Oshawa.
This study is incredibly important, and it has been continued from the last Parliament, where, frankly, several committees were seized with McKinsey and the study of McKinsey. And a central player within that was Mr. Dominic Barton. He, in fact, appeared before the Government Operations Committee at that time because he was the global lead for McKinsey. He ran the entire organization. And in our questioning of him, we found that he had several contacts throughout government, including Chrystia Freeland, of course, who has gone on now to several other positions. The former Prime Minister, of course, used him in economic advisory. Even the current Prime Minister used him as an economic advisor in one capacity or another. So just this week, Kirsten Hillman was removed from her position as the Canadian ambassador to the U.S. And who is expected to be the replacement? Well, we all know it's Mark Wiseman. And what did Mark Wiseman do? He founded the Century Initiative, the lobby group, with Dominic Barton. So yet another tie to McKinsey that we have here through these individuals. It's just so many close friends of the former Prime Minister and the current Prime Minister that are involved with contracting and McKinsey. And here we see another, again, the rumored, not quite yet confirmed, but most certainly will be the new Canadian ambassador to Canada, a very important position at this time where the Prime Minister has failed to obtain a contract with our...
Sorry, I'm just struggling to recognize the relevance of Ms. Cusey's comments with what we're discussing today.
Yeah, thank you. I recognize the member is new. She wasn't here for the last Parliament, and so she wouldn't be familiar with that. But it's definitely relevant with the relationship between Mark Wiseman and Dominic Barton and their work. And so my question to the Auditor General is, was Mark Wiseman's name found in any of the documents that your office reviewed for this study or the study on ArriveCan? Thank you.
No, we did not see that name in the files that we reviewed, to my knowledge.
Thank you. As far as you are aware, does Mr. Wiseman have any contact or connection to McKinsey?
I'm not aware of any. That would be a question that would probably be best placed to Mr. Wiseman. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jennings, I want to point towards an article released yesterday from Blacklock's reporting that, frankly, the title is Deputy Admits Lying to Members of Parliament. Of course, the deputy in question is yourself, and now here you are again, back in front of a parliamentary committee providing answers to our questions. So I'm giving you the opportunity to explain to Canadians what this reporter meant when they said that you lied to committee. How do you perceive what happened? Can you tell Canadians the story, please, from your side?
Thank you for the question. I'd be happy to answer that. So in my initial testimony at the Operations, Standing Committee on Operations and Expenditures, I testified that there were redactions done to a document that was requested by that committee. I had misunderstood that the redactions were initiated by the company, and I corrected the record in my second testimony where I was clear that what had happened was the department had recommended redactions based on our long-standing relationship with that company. And the company confirmed that those redactions should stay in place.
Okay, so you don't perceive it as a mistruth, you perceive it as a misunderstanding?
That is what I just said, yes.
Okay, thank you. We know that your department has handed out billions in contracts with Stellantis and Algoma Steel, and that these contracts came without job guarantees. The Auditor General's report shows that your department provided nearly $4 million in contracts to the relevant group here today, McKinsey. Did the work be scoped out? Did the scope, McKinsey's work include advising the Department of Industry on any contracts like the ones mentioned above?
So just make sure I understand the question. Are you asking whether the McKinsey contracts had any link to the Stellantis contracts?
And Algoma.
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, thank you. To the Auditor General, as you would be well aware, in the 44th Parliament, CBSA was at the center of numerous studies surrounding the ArriveCAN application, GC strategies, and more broadly around contracting. Your office's 2024 Report 1 on ArriveCAN stated the Canadian Border Service Agency relied heavily on external resources, which increased ArriveCAN's costs. And your report from June of this year on GC strategies showed that the CBSA accounted for over half of the total value of contracts awarded to GC strategies in the period studied. That, of course, leads us to the report we are studying here today, McKinsey & Company, which notes that in some instances, CBSA gave the impression of a competitive contracting process. However, procurement strategies were structured to make it easier for McKinsey & Company to be awarded the contract. Can you elaborate on that, please?
A short answer, please.
Yes, thank you. In one case that we reviewed, we found that
McKinsey was not on a supplier list for the contracting authority, what they were looking for. Ultimately, the strategy was changed from a task-based supply arrangement to a solutions-based supply arrangement so that McKinsey, who had already been qualified under that arrangement, would be available to bid. In our view, that raised concerns about tailoring a process towards McKinsey. That said, I'm going to just specify that that's a perception. This is where documentation becomes important. Thank you.
Chair.
Mr. Osborne, for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate your opening remarks and the fact that you've worked towards the recommendations of the Auditor General.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Dr. Tibbetts. Conestoga College took in
Excuse me, I'm having trouble hearing you. Be a little loud. Thanks.
I'll restart.
Sorry.
Well. Okay. Conestoga College took in 84,000 international students in 4 years. In 2023, they took in more than the U of T, UBC, and Calgary combined. And this had an incredibly negative impact on the cost of housing, availability of healthcare services, and created a youth jobs crisis in the region. But yet, Conestoga College's operating surplus went from $3 million in 2015 to $252 million in 2024. Dr. Tibbetts, in 2024, in an article in Guelph Today, you were quoted as saying, some of them, international students, live like that, 14 to a house in slumlord housing, because they don't want to pay more than $400. You are still requesting record number of foreign students permits. Is that correct? You are on mute.
Monsieur Tibbetts, vous êtes sur Zoom.
Mr. Tibbetts, you are on mute.
No, we've always worked with both the federal government, provincial government, and the local communities. That's why we took in that many students. I mean, we could find places for all those students. This is a massive area. We're not just in Kitchener, Waterloo, and Guelph. We're across
but
Brantford, Milton.
Madame Ripple-Garner.
But the cost of a one-bedroom rent in your region went up by 35%, over $500 in a very short period of time. Did the federal government ever ask you to tie your requests for foreign student permits to housing costs and availability in your broader region?
No.
No. Do you think you'd be able to have juiced foreign student permits to the levels that you did if the federal government had tied the number of foreign student permits they issued to your institution to housing availability and cost?
Well, it's more than the federal government. We were encouraged to grow in downtown Kitchener. We added 3,500 students there because we helped the city revitalize downtown, the same in Guelph and the same in Brantford and Milton. I mean, there was a huge demand. There was huge, I think in the fall of 22 in Ontario, there were 323,000 job vacancies, and we were asked to try to help solve that problem.
Thank you. So we just heard testimony that we should be decoupling foreign student permits from jobs. And now there is a substantive youth jobs crisis both in Canada but also in your broader region. Do you think, did the federal government ever ask you to link permit availability to job availability in the region?
Well, that's what we did. We did link the two. In fact, if you look at...
But recently?
I'm not aware that they did that, no, but we did it. That's what we did. In fact, our job placement rate for international students was 86% after 6 months after graduation.
Did
That's
the federal
very
government
high.
did the federal government ever ask you to take any responsibility for asylum claims, fraudulent asylum claims being made by foreign students who were issued permits to your institution?
Well, there was one statement made by Minister Miller, but as far as I'm concerned, that's Canadian Border Services. We are not. The first time we've ever heard anything about asylum seekers when Mr. Miller spoke to that.
Would you have not been able to juice foreign student permit numbers to the levels that you did if if your institution had a financial liability tied to asylum claims or visa overstays made by foreign students at your institution?
Well, we were never involved in this from day one. We got involved in international enrollment back in the 90s. There was no money to be made. We didn't try to make money. We were just trying to meet skill shortage needs. That's all we're doing.
I'm just making a note for the analysts because I think that's a recommendation that probably...
All of us go to Florida. We don't necessarily
Oh, yeah. Let's go to Florida, baby.
register with the embassy. And so when you look at the number, it's just an indication, but that's clearly not the entire picture.
Everyone has an opinion about Canadian federal politics.
Oh, yeah.
Hey gang, what's up? Just Aaron right here. We're going to take a look at Melanie Joly, our Minister of Affairs, Foreign Affairs, Global Affairs, some kind of affairs. She talks about being in Florida. When was the last time you were down there? Takes it for granted. I don't even know if it's like code language or something, but something has happened since she came back from France. I don't know what kind of a party it was in France. I do know a good party though, and it looks like that to me. You can see other cabinet members. I think that Joly maybe is sharing her stash. Everybody seemed strung out this week. Pretty crazy. Let's take a look at Melanie Joly. She was in the camera frame this week more than most other weeks. She avoids that stuff a lot. I'm not sure if something gave her more confidence or what it is, but she seems even dumber than usual. Let's take a look. Watch this.
Okay, good to see you. I'll start in English and then I'll go to French.
Oh yeah, let's go to Florida.
Hey, that's something everyone can enjoy.
Each for the Conservatives, the Liberals, and the Bloc. We'll begin with Madame Dancho. The floor is yours for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Minister Joly, for being with us today. Of course, we have a copy of the redacted contract, the special contribution agreement of up to $15 billion taxpayer dollars, and the Strategic Innovation Fund, which represents a $500 million contribution from your government. Of course, to Stellantis for the Nexstar EV battery plant, as you know, courtesy of CBC last week. So now we have a situation where 3,000 people have been laid off in the Brampton facility, as you know, and you've responded to say that you're going to sue them, that they've broken their promises. And just today, you've announced that you're starting the formal dispute resolution. So I'm trying to understand what exactly the promise is that you're saying they broke, assuming that means that they broke a promise they signed in the contract. So can you tell the committee where in this agreement, courtesy of CBC, is that Canada-wide jobs guarantee? What clause?
Well, first of all, when it comes to the different, so I think we should be clear, there are 3 different contracts. This committee will have access to it. The government is acting in good faith. I want to make sure that everybody is aware of these contracts and will be able to have access to it. So it's not a courtesy of CBC or not. The government has already accepted the production
but in
of
that,
the
that's
contract.
the first that I'm able to see it. So is it in that contract or is it in another CIF agreement?
So obviously you'll see in the contract that all the contracts are linked. And clearly, it is about protecting jobs. It is about also the production at the Brampton facility. So you'll see that clearly.
So,
by the way, I must say, Raquel, because I think your question is really an important one, this committee, although it's not necessarily the same members, but this committee got access to contracts for the Nexstar facility 2 years ago. So that's why the government has never
Minister.
been clearer that you can obviously have access
Those
to
were
it.
Those are read in confidence. We do know they're going to OGO, and now CBC has released it. So this is the first access we've been able to publicly see the contract. And again, I'll just say as an aside, this is, of course, a professional setting, Minister, so I'm extending a professional courtesy to you to refer to as Minister Jolie. I would appreciate that same courtesy to me in this setting. Thank you. So in this contract, though, there is no jobs guarantee other than the 2,500 at the Nexstar plant. So are you saying that the other SIF agreement that was for retooling Brampton and Windsor, does that contain a Brampton jobs guarantee?
So I must dispute what you just said. This is not a fact. There's always job numbers guarantees. That's exactly why the government of Canada and also the government of Ontario in this case have decided to support the company. Because at the end of the day, why do we do this? MP Dancho, we do that because we believe that it's important to create jobs, to protect jobs and create jobs.
Minister,
so you will have access to the information. You will see in the contract that there are job numbers.
Thank you.
And of course, there are things that are commercially sensitive, but the government will be acting in good faith.
But in the contract that we were provided from CBC publicly, there is a jobs commitment to the Nexstar plant. There is no mention of Brampton. So I'm asking you, in the contract we have not been able to see for Brampton, is there a jobs guarantee for Brampton?
There are jobs guarantees in all the different contracts, but I must say also that you absolutely need to make sure that you see not only the contract that is linked to the investment through the Strategic Innovation Fund for the Windsor and Brampton facility, but also its amendment. And we'll make sure that that's the case.
So you're saying that the Nexstar, the two contracts you've provided to them that total well over $15 billion, that you're tying that contract being paid out to the other SIF agreement for the Brampton and Windsor retooling. Is that correct? Because they're in violation of a Brampton...
the three contracts are linked. There's a
right,
contract and an amendment.
14.1G.
So,
yeah.
A couple of things. And maybe, Charles, if you want to be able to address the question by MP Dancho. But just before I pass it to Charles, it is really important to understand that in the contract, when you refer to $15 billion, the $15 billion was linked to the production and sale of batteries. So when you look at Windsor right now, and obviously your colleague would know because she's from the writing, the facility has been built, but the company is still hiring. And there's not been any production and sale of batteries yet. So the government has not spent $15 billion. So I know that some colleagues have been using the term $15 billion, but it's not accurate.
Up to $15 billion, though.
But it's not been spent yet by the government, and that's an important fact.
What you're saying, though, is that because those 3,000 jobs at Brampton were laid off, they're in violation of their agreements. Fair enough. Now, you're saying that there is a Brampton jobs guarantee in that other SIF agreement that no one in the media or ourselves has seen. That's going to OGO. We welcome that opportunity to see that. But you're saying there's a jobs guarantee in there that will link it to the Nexstar battery plant. Is that correct?
It's actually linked to the fact that the Brampton facility must be operating, and there is not a possibility. If the Brampton facility ceases its production, there will be a violation of the contract.
And that's going to impact your agreements with the Nexstar plant. Is that correct?
And that's why we're actually starting today with the mechanism of dispute settlement, because it is important that we be able to hold the company to account.
So are you prepared then?
But I just, MP Dancho, maybe Charles, you want to add something?
Sure.
All right, gang. That's pretty fun. Melanie Jolie is a twit. We all know that. Let's watch how bad it used to be. Imagine this. We've got coming up right here. Aaron, Kennedy, and Looney. We're trying to bring the most entertaining pieces of committees. Yeah. These are a couple of old pieces. Chrystia Freeland, though, she was brutal. She's going to be going head-to-head here with Larry Brock and Jaws Raj Halan, two of our favorites to watch on here. But Chrystia Freeland is a special kind of witch. Let's just take a look and a listen. This woman is ridiculous.
Oh, yeah.
With MP Howland for 6 minutes, please.
Thanks, Chair. Minister, have you seen our Common Sense Conservative leader's brilliant 15-minute documentary on the housing hell in Canada that's been viewed over 4 million times?
I am certainly familiar with the Conservative scheme on housing. I haven't watched the video itself.
Okay, so I would strongly encourage that you do watch it. because it's a common sense conservative plan how to build more homes and not more bureaucracy. And while you're at it, maybe like, share, and subscribe so others can see a common sense conservative plan on how to get housing fixed as well.
I'm happy to comment on the conservative scheme today. In fact,
your
very
government's
happy
housing
to.
agency, CMHC, says that 3.5 million additional homes need to be built in Canada by 2030 to restore housing affordability. Your housing agency, the same one, the head of that agency says that, it said 2 days ago at the Senate Finance Committee, that your government has no plan to reach that number. In fact, in this committee, that same agency, your housing agency, says that that target is not attainable under current conditions because of high interest rates and because of higher costs that were caused by your government. In other words, your own housing agency has no faith in you or your government. If your own housing agency has no faith in you, why should Canadians?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Hallen. You asked me to comment on the conservative scheme on housing.
I didn't ask you to comment on that. I made a comment.
In fact, invited me to, so let me comment.
I'd like to hear an answer.
First of all, I would point out...
Point of order.
Point of order.
Mr. Hallen, as he does every time the minister comes, asks a question or makes a statement and then refuses to allow the minister to answer. And so, Mr. Chair, I would just ask we allow the minister to answer the questions out of respect for the minister and the other members of this committee, but also the folks at home who are watching who would like to hear the answers.
The question is about our department not having faith in you.
MP Hallen, I am going to ask, like it did happen in the last meeting, a lot of crosstalk, you jumping in when you ask a question.
The question was not about the documentary. The question was about
you
your
ask the
department
question
not having faith
out
in
of
her.
respect and out of respect to everybody that's here.
Minister, can you please answer why Canadians should have faith in you?
MP Hallen.
Even though your housing
MP
agency
Hallen.
doesn't. That's the question.
MP Hallen.
I've asked my question.
MP Hallen. You asked a question. Allow the witness to answer the question.
She's not
the
answering
witness
the question.
The witness did not even have a nanosecond to answer your question.
Point of order, Mr. Chair. Not only is that irrelevant and untrue, and they're not answering the question, you shut me down by adjourning the meeting improperly. So could you please let Conservatives speak? I know you don't want to hear it as a Liberal. I know you don't want to hear about the housing hell, and you should watch the video too. I might add.
MP Lawrence,
Chair, I will ask my question again. Let's move on. I will ask my question again. It's my time, Chair. I will ask the question again.
Actually,
Minister,
let me
your
just
housing
say,
agency has no faith
I believe
in
that
your
MP
plan.
Hallen
Why
asked me a
should
question.
Canadians?
I certainly believe the point of this exercise is for him to ask me a question. He offered quite a long
Questions on the table
preamble
3
with
times
lots
now.
of points embedded in it.
Why should
and I'd
Canadians
like to
have faith in
respond
you
to
when your
those.
own agency
if
doesn't?
MP Hallen would like to
That's the
hear a
question.
response.
Allow the witness, please, to answer the questions.
Yeah, I'd also like to point out that Conservative senators have been reprimanded for bullying witnesses, and it would be terrible to have that kind of behavior.
Your Prime
here in the
Minister
House.
has been reprimanded for bullying strong women in his own caucus for standing up to his corruption.
So let
please spare us
me
the
now
lecture.
speak about housing. And let me first point out that there is an internal contradiction in what the Conservative members of this committee have done when it comes to voting and their purported
irrelevant to
scheme
my
on
question.
housing. Actually,
Point
I
of
believe
order,
that
Mr.
your
Chair.
votes are very
Point of
relevant.
order.
There has to be.
Question
You
was
have
clear.
to stop interrupting.
Yeah.
Stop interrupting.
So I'll move on. I'll move on.
I
I'll
haven't
actually move-
finished
I'll
answering.
move on. It's my time, and I only have
No,
limited
I'm afraid
time.
actually it's time for
so,
questions and answers,
Minister,
MP Hallen, so I would like
Minister,
to answer
this is
because
the
I have
reason
things
why,
to say
and
about
this is
housing
exactly
because
the
we have a
reason
plan.
why your non-answer proves why Canadians and your own housing agency has no faith in your government to meet the target.
Point of order.
What this proves is that the Conservatives do not want to actually listen to the answers. The point of order is, excuse me. I have listened to you interrupt the minister and not allow her to speak. I have the right to make a point of order. Now I'm being interrupted and heckled during my point of order. Please, Chair, please, I'm asking you. Minister Freeland has the right to respond to the questions that are put to, and this is not. This is a point of. Now I'm being heckled and interrupted.
It's not a
during
point
my
of order.
point of
This
order.
is a breach of process.
This is.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay.
The witnesses have.
Okay.
I will move on.
MP
I can't,
Lawrence and MP
Chair.
Hallen.
This has
and-
descended
and-
so
let's-
badly now that I'm being
Yes.
interrupted during my point of order.
Yes. Okay. Members, first off, stop the crosstalk. Okay. Stop the crosstalk.
I'll
and the
move on.
other thing is, MP Hallen, MP Lawrence, any MP. is we have interpreters here. There's a lot of screaming going on. If members screaming into the mics, I think in my opening remarks I explained the danger, the health and safety to our interpreters. So I would ask, that is with crosstalk, that is with screaming, that is with not having respect and decorum here in this room. I think that is what we want.
Point of order.
Yeah, we are looking for respect and decorum. Point of order.
Please don't crosstalk. And I raised my voice at a reasonable tone, and you did not recognize it last meeting. So that's why I have to raise my voice, because I'm hoping you'll hear me, Chair.
I can hear you, MP Lawrence.
Chair, with respect, I'd like to move on to my next question. So we can agree that Canadians and your own housing agency don't have faith in your government, which they've already outlined. And that's why after your government spent $89 billion on photo op funds for housing promises that have not been actualized, rents, mortgages, the amount of down payment needed on a house has all doubled in just 8 years. This was never there before your government, and it certainly won't be there afterwards. Canadians are living in a housing hell and a cost of living crisis. 2 million Canadians are going into a food bank in a single month just in 8 years. There's a 100% increase in food bank usage. A third of those kids are kids that are starving because of high taxes like the carbon tax and other factors that have been caused by your government. The number one reason for food bank usage is because of the housing unaffordability that your government has created. 10 cities across this country, there are nurses living in their cars, there are students living under bridges. That's 8 years after your government. Why should anyone believe that anything that your government has done is actually helping addressing the affordability crisis?
Thank you for the question. Let me just start by saying Canadians know the Conservatives cannot be trusted when it comes to protecting the most vulnerable people in Canada. Since we formed government, 2.3 million Canadians have been lifted out of poverty, and our government has particularly. I'm sorry, Mr. Hallen. I'm speaking about poverty in Canada, which you purport to care about and which you purport to have addressed in your question, and I'd like to finish my answer, please.
It was about food banks.
The Canada Child Benefit has had a huge impact on Canadian families and is having an impact today, lifting millions and millions out of poverty, and the statistics show that. Our early learning and child care program
Minister,
is helping
the question
Canadians.
Was clear. I'll have to move on because I have a limited amount of time.
No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You haven't given me a chance to answer, and that is not only rude,
2 million
it's
Canadians
inappropriate
are still going into
committee.
food bank. I'll just ask my last question because my time is limited. Your government promised by Thanksgiving that the price of food would go down. A scathing report came out this morning on the food index saying that food costs are going up, driven up also by your carbon tax because you're taxing farmers and those that are shipping the food and storing the food. Those people going into a food bank are increasing because of food costs and housing costs caused by your government. 83% actually that are going to food banks are working families. That's a phenomenon that we've never seen in this country before. So you promised on Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving went by, food prices didn't come down. We thought maybe you meant the U.S. Thanksgiving. That went by as well. Nothing happened. It's almost Christmas time, and there's literally kids in this country asking Santa not for gifts, but just for food that they could put on their table. On what date will food prices actually come down so Canadians can afford to eat? And when will you axe the tax so people can put food on their table and heat their homes?
So let me just be clear. I've been repeatedly interrupted, and what we see is that Conservatives are interested in posturing. They're not interested in asking actual questions. But let me be clear. Canadians know that Conservatives only believe in cuts, 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 particularly for the most vulnerable among us. And that is why our government is so committed to supporting the most vulnerable, to supporting children. 2.3 million Canadians lifted out of poverty. The Canada Child Benefit, money directly for the most vulnerable children in our country. And when it comes to housing, the purported subject of this meeting, let me just be clear that the Conservative purported scheme actually would go backwards on housing. It would actually put the GST back on the construction of rental housing that we need. This is not a scheme. This is putting Canada into reverse when actually what we need to do is build more homes faster.
Thank you, Minister. The time is up now, and so just on the timing, as members know, each party has 6 minutes. If a question is asked when there's like 5.5 minute mark or 5:40, and the witness then is answering, the time will go over the 6 minutes, and that is as we have the practice that we have kept here on this committee, and that's what we will continue to keep doing unless the members decide otherwise. And now we are moving.
Oh, yeah.
Freeland, you'll agree with me that the state-owned, taxpayer-funded
Of the hate
Canadian
crime in this
Broadcasting
country.
Corporation reported on February the 10th, 2022, that the GoFundMe donations to the convoy protest came from donors located outside of Canada. You'd agree with that?
I don't have the report in front of me, and I haven't memorized all CBC reports, but I'm prepared to believe you.
In fact, they stated that the donations came from America, United Kingdom, France, Germany, Australia, New Zealand, and the Netherlands. You'd also accept that as fact?
I don't see the article before me, but you say that's what it says.
They even claimed that the convoy might be Russian funded. Do you recall that?
Again, you're reading from the article.
Yes. On March 21st, 2002, the CBC, without any explanation, without apology, without any clarity, retracted their story regarding the funding of the protest. You were aware of that?
Again, I'm not speaking for the CBC. I'm speaking for
I'm not
the
asking
Ministry
you to
of
speak
Finance.
for the CBC. I'm asking, were you informed that the CBC retracted the story, the false story, about foreign funding donations to the convoy?
Again, Mr. Brock, I don't believe that the CBC is being interrogated here. I believe it's the government of
Just
Canada.
answer the question, Minister Freeland. Were you aware, yes or no? It's a simple question.
I don't have the article before me, and I'm not here to answer questions about the CBC and
The
its
Deputy
reporting.
Prime Minister, the most senior cabinet minister, is not prepared to accept whether or not the CBC retracted a false story?
I don't speak for the CBC, sir.
You, as the most senior cabinet minister and the deputy prime minister, relied upon that initial story from the CBC and shared your concerns with Canadians regarding terrorism funding and money laundering. Your words, correct?
Let me be very clear. My principal concern when it comes to the illegal occupation and the illegal blockades is the economic harm that
Let
was
me
done
be
to
very
Canada.
clear, Minister Freeland. Your words several times in the House referred to terrorism funding and money laundering. Are you saying you didn't use those words?
I am speaking here today, and I am talking about the central motivation of our very serious
And
actions.
I'm here to ask you questions, and I expect, unlike question period, I expect a response. So my response is, do you recall using the words terrorism funding and money laundering in the House and reporting outside the House? Yes or no, Minister Freeland?
I believe if we were in a court of law where I think you once worked, that might be called badgering the witness, Mr. Brock.
Chair?
No.
Can we allow the question to be answered?
Thank you. As I said, my core concern as Minister of Finance and my central justification for these very serious measures that we put in place, as was clear in my opening statement.
You're not
as I
answering the
have said
question. I'm
throughout,
going to move on.
Is the economic
You're not
impact.
answering the question, and I will move on.
Madam Chair, on a point of order, it's entirely possible that Mr. Brock doesn't like the answers he's hearing, but the witness is entitled to provide an answer. If she could just be provided the opportunity to provide an
Madam
answer.
Chair, the witness may not like the questions, but she's not entitled to establish her own facts in responding to an answer that is non-responsive and not relevant to the question.
I'd actually just, we'll move back 20 seconds, allow you to ask your last question.
Do you agree with me that the Deputy Director of FinTrack, Mr. McKillop, confirmed at committee that the convoy funding did not come from terrorism funding or money laundering, and the typical person who donated hundreds and thousands of dollars to the convoy came from their own resources and posed no security threat? Do you accept that?
What I accept, Mr. Brock, is that the core threat was to the Canadian economy, to our reputation as a trading partner and investment destination.
Thank you for the
I made that
non-response,
clear in my
Minister.
opening remarks, and that is my view.
Thank you for the non-response, Minister. Very helpful.
We'll move to Mr. Nakvi.
Oh, yeah.
We'll wrap it up right there, gang. Aaron, Kennedy, and Looney, like, share, subscribe. We cover Canadian federal politics here. We show old pieces like...
Okay. Canada's broken because we're stupid.
I think it is extraordinary that Mark Carney has become the Prime Minister of Canada. He did a terrible job in Britain.
Skepticism. It's the same thing happens on the bloody energy front. It's like, well, Australia won't build coal-generating electrical plants, but they'll ship their bloody coal to China, where they're going to build much dirtier plants. And the same thing applies to Canada. If we shut down our energy industry, which our bloody, insane, narcissistic, delusional, traitorous Prime Minister happens to think is a good idea and seems to be working as hard as he can to manage, all that's going to happen is that we're going to cede the ground to people like Putin, who we also turned into a radical enemy with his hands on the control pump for Europe. I mean, I don't see how we could be stupider here in the West if we actually took courses in stupidity and tried as hard as...
Gang, what's up? Aaron here, Canadian Looney. Like, share, subscribe. Get your Canadian federal politics right here. We've got a very interesting video. Bill Gates is going to drop a bomb on the climate change crisis. Those tree huggers are not going to like what Bill Gates has to say, but I don't trust it. We're going to watch a clip here with Jordan Peterson explaining why Canadians should not trust this person, Bill Gates, anything that comes out of his mouth. Like, anytime he's presenting a case, I'm always wondering what he's really up to. Jordan Peterson is going to expose a lot right here. We'll get right into the full interview where Bill Gates not denies climate change now, but says that we need to take the pedal off the gas. I wonder why that is. Maybe it's because he's buying all the farmland. It's crazy. Let's take a look. Jordan Peterson, always a pleasure to watch. Hope he's doing well. This clip is from a ways back, so he has made a comeback though. Anyhow, let's get into this. Bill Gates, Jordan Peterson, Aaron right here, Canadian Looney. Like, share, subscribe. Let's get into this.
Hey, that's something everyone can enjoy.
To what end, Michael? Like, I read about, the notion that we need to, turn to plant-based foods and insect-based protein in the future, and that, meat production and all the cow methane are contributing to the degradation of the environment. But, like, what do you see this as a plan, or just as a part of the globalist utopian, ideologically blind stupidity? Because, I mean, farmers do pollute. There is runoff from fertilizer. It does cause algal blooms, for example, in the water. And these are problems. I don't think they're insurmountable problems. But you're pointing to something that's more malevolent and deeper and programmatic. And we don't want to go there without...
All right, so we're going to try this right quick. We're going to see if we can pull off this transition without it being a disaster. We've got a lot more videos to show, but again, they canceled question period today. I don't know what's up, so we're just trying to compensate there. But let's see if... here we go. We'll start here.
Not accurate. I am the chair. You will have to respect me or leave, number one.
You have absolutely no standing and no privilege to exclude a member and ask them to leave. She is duly elected, and you do not possess the powers to force her to leave this committee.
I'm going to continue because I couldn't get a point out before you called irrelevance on me, Madam Chair. And I know that you may not like the facts of the matter, but that doesn't mean that you can censor a member and in any way ask a member of the House of Commons to leave a committee. I think that's out of line, and I'm going to put that on the record.
We're heading down to Salmon River just to make a couple of intros.
look way up. Hey gang, what's up? Just Aaron right here, Canadian Looney, coming to you from the meandering Salmon River. We've got these structures here that were built to cross the bridge for the railroad. They never finished the railroad though. Kept Guys Row off the map. Anyhow, let's get into the politics. We're going back to a committee meeting that is being chaired by the most incompetent chair, Lena Diab. This old bag is from West Halifax and totally incompetent, can't run the meeting. Conservatives are just trying to get answers, and when you can't get answers, send in Larry Brock, Michelle Ferrari, Melissa Lanceman, fighting the good fight, trying to get answers for Canadians. It's a tough deal. What are you gonna do? Let's get into the video, check this out. Canadians need to see it to actually, and this is a long video, but it has to be so you see it in context. The Liberal playbook is on full display, covering up for Trudeau's, his dirty WEF agenda. Anyways, let's get into this. Let's take a peek at the video.
Ms. Ferrari.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And listen, I'm going to take people back to the summer. July 31st, 2024, Status of Women Committee sat. And there's a real overlap right now in terms of what's happening in Status of Women and the justice failures in this country. Because an emergency meeting was called in July. So for people who don't know, committees don't sit in the summer, but this emergency meeting was called because Stats Can released these shocking statistics. Again, right at 2015, when Justin Trudeau came into power, all we've seen is this rapid increase of crime across this country. Total sexual assaults up 75%. Sexual violations against children, which is pertinent to this study of Bill 270, is up 119%. Forcible confinement or kidnapping is
Point
up
of order.
11%.
I guess I was going to say point of relevance before you say what is the relevance of that to asking for the extension for 30 days to reiterate one last time, because I will not do it again. I've done it on and on. If we don't have an extension, the bill cannot proceed to be studied at all. Point final, that's it. Do we want to study the bill or do we not?
Yeah.
As the chair, I am asking the committee and you can vote on it. You either want to study it or you don't.
So, Madam Chair, I am very relevant, and that is exactly what I've been trying to say. 100% we want to study the failed justice in this country. 100% we want to do that. So why am I talking about what happened in July 31st, 2024? Because the exact same thing is happening in this Justice Committee. We brought forward survivors and victims, which is exactly what we want to do. So that the Liberals have gotten hung up on one witness rather than the meat and potatoes of this actual bill.
Point of order.
Mr. McGregor, yes.
Sorry, Madam Chair, and I hate interrupting someone, but I need to call relevance. The question before the committee right now is whether we agree to a 30-day extension or not. All arguments and comments should be in support of that. We should not be talking about what other committees did during the summer. I've got great tales about what the Public Safety Committee did during the summer too. But the point...
Mr. McGregor, get out of here. You're such a pansy.
Before the committee right now is whether we agree to a 30-day extension on Bill C-270. Madam Chair, I would ask that you enforce relevance because I want to see commentary specifically for or against that particular point.
Point of order.
And again, you don't have to agree on the extension. We can simply vote on it and move on.
Point of order.
Mr. Brock.
It's not incumbent on any member of this committee to opine on relevance, as my friend, my colleague, Ms. Ferrari, is just starting her intervention. There's no time limit. There's no document that specifies that relevant points must be immediately addressed by a member, or they can only speak for a limited amount of time, and a percentage of that all has to be on relevant points. There's always a degree of latitude exercised by chairs of all committees, and in my view, because majority of us are all lawyers, Relevance is very subjective. It's not an objective term. And I'm sure at some point in time, Ms. Ferrari, if she is given the opportunity for a fulsome intervention without unnecessary points of order, will loop it around to relevant issues germane to Mr. Maloney's motion. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I guess because we have all practiced law for some period or another, the judge also has the ability to determine whether it's relevant or not. And I know that is not relevant. So, Ms. Ferrari, either speak on the 30-day or please cease to speak on that so I can give it to another member, because we need to get back to relevance.
Point of order, Madam Chair.
Mr. Can you turn your name around?
Nader.
Mr. Nader, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
How do you not know Mr. Nader?
Yeah. It's okay. I've only been here 9 years. It's all good. Thank you, Madam Chair, and I am a temporary substitute to this committee. I just want to point out that you did mention that we've all practiced law. Just want to clarify, I have not practiced law. I'm not a lawyer. I come from a political science background, so I just wanted to clarify for the record that I'm not a lawyer. Have not been called to the bar. Do not practice law. I just want to make sure that's clarified for the record, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the clarification. I remember the first couple of years we were on this committee, there were a number of members clarifying things with that. So thank you. And welcome as a substitute. All right. So where do we go back to? Ms. Ferrari, go ahead. Are you a lawyer, by the way?
I also am not a lawyer.
Okay, so I'll give you a little bit leeway then, but a little bit doesn't mean a lot.
Okay. No, I would love to be a lawyer. Listen, it's interesting they don't want this brought up. And it's obvious they don't want it brought up because it's the same thing, and it is very relevant to what we're going to talk about. And since I have the floor, I'll bring it up. The NDP and the Liberals don't want to talk about what happened in July because it was an absolute disgrace.
We will act in the national interest. And that's why we are moving to warfighting readiness as the central purpose of our armed forces. When we are being directly threatened by states with advanced military forces, the most effective way to deter them is to be ready. And frankly, to show them that we're ready, to deliver peace through strength. I can announce today that we're going to build at least 6 new munitions factories in the United Kingdom, generating over 1,000 jobs. We will build thousands of new long-range weapons in the United Kingdom to boost European deterrence, supporting around 800 more jobs. We will defend our homeland by investing in our air and missile defence to better protect these islands. We will create a hybrid Royal Navy, blending drones with warships, submarines and aircraft to patrol the North Atlantic and beyond, supporting thousands of brilliant shipbuilding jobs, including right here in Govan. Under our AUKUS alliance with the US and Australia, we will now deliver up to 12 attack submarines protecting Britain's waters, scaling up the industrial base in Barrow and all along the supply chain to deliver a new sub every 18 months, again creating thousands of jobs. We will also invest in world-leading drone capabilities and battlefield technology, in better kit for our warriors abroad, and better housing for them and their families at home. And finally, I can confirm today that we are investing £15 billion in our sovereign warhead programme to secure our deterrent for decades to come, creating 9,000 jobs and thousands more in supply chains across the country, part of the historic renewal of our nuclear deterrent as the ultimate guarantor of our safety and our security. The moment has arrived to transform how we defend ourselves and to renew our nation, an investment in British pride and the British people. Driving here because
to victims and survivors. And this bill is about victims and survivors. And so, of course, we want to study this bill. So what happened Well, the same thing that's happening right now. We called an emergency meeting to talk about these stats, and a Liberal member of Parliament hijacked survivors and victims with a motion on abortion. It was the most disgusting, appalling thing we've ever seen. We had the victims and survivors and their parents in tears, screaming, yelling, leaving. The Liberal member threatening on camera, saying, I will bring up an abortion motion every single time just so we don't have to talk about the failures of Justin Trudeau and what he's done of crime in this country. And that's the reality. And why is that relevant? Because it doesn't matter if the sponsor of the bill comes to testify. What matters is that we have experts and victims and survivors to come to this committee in justice to testify about these stats. This is not made up, Madam Speaker. And this is the Committee of Justice. Nobody at home cares about who said what, when, and how. They care about changing the law to protect children in particular, our most vulnerable, and women. And we have an epidemic in this country under this Prime Minister who is a blatant fake feminist. So what the Liberals are doing here is they're stuck on one piece of this conversation. They're stuck that they want one witness to testify, and that has nothing to do with the meat and potatoes.
Point of order. Now we are off topic, because the very simple point of this motion is to get an extension of time so we can discuss it. Once we get that extension, then we can talk about who the witnesses are. We can get back to the issue about Mr. Vierson's apparent refusal to come here, and we can debate the merits and why he doesn't want to do that. If they are so interested in getting to the study and doing it,
James Maloney, you're an asshole.
Then end the debate now, vote yes, and we can get back to the topic that we should be talking about, which is the anti-Semitism study.
If there is no extension, we are not going to be able to get witnesses. We have no time. Are you not listening? Do we have to show the calendar again? We're out of time. We need to extend in order to bring witnesses. Whether it's Mr. Vierson or not is a separate issue. We don't have any more time.
Absolutely, I'm listening, and I would throw that back to you, Madam Chair, too, and to the members of this committee. That is the whole. This has become in cloaked. What they've done is they've put forward a motion that is cloaked. What they're really looking for is the sponsor of the bill to testify. That it's blatant. It's on Twitter, and that's fine. But they're not acknowledging the survivors and victims, which they have done repeatedly in other committees. That is what I'm trying to convey to you. And it comes back to the anti-Semitism, it comes back to the rising crime, it comes back to all of the same things over and over and over again. You have a Prime Minister who tells one group of MPs to say one thing, another group of MPs to say another thing. He himself goes and tells people one thing to one room and another thing to another room, all while public safety and crime runs rampant in this country. So I will wrap it up there, but I think it is important that folks at home recognize how much they don't want to speak about what their tried, true, and tested tactic is, which my colleague, Mr. Brock, has brought up multiple times. They just want to deflect and turn it because the economy is failing, food bank usage is at the highest in history, kids are using food banks at record numbers, housing has doubled, public safety is
Point
gone,
of order.
opioid addiction is gone.
Now we're talking about things
and now,
that aren't even
Mr. Maloney.
vaguely relevant.
Their failed record, and I'm done,
Mr.
Madam
Maloney,
Chair.
thank you.
The issues that are relevant to this committee, not your ramblings.
Those are all relevant to the committee, Mr. Maloney, every one of them. Yes, housing, because guess what happens when you don't have a house? You go commit crime because you're in poverty. That's how it works.
Okay, well, thank you. Yes, Mr. Bruson. I think Ms.
How these crooked Liberals always fall back to woke tactic bullshit.
is done. She said she's finished.
I think
Yes.
it's really important that we clarify that the unhoused are not necessarily people who commit crimes. Like, I do not think that we should speak that way about people who are unhoused.
Point of order,
think
Madam
we-
Chair.
we
For the
agree on
record, if that member would like to go watch Status of Women committee yesterday, where we're studying intimate partner violence, which directly impacts this, there is a direct correlation to people who are not making enough money, and under this Justin Trudeau government, they are using food banks at record numbers. They can't access housing,
Madam
and
Chair,
crime and
this
intimate
is
partner
so
violence.
far off.
This has absolutely nothing to do with what we are studying. Just a minute. Ms. Lansman.
Madam Chair. I am, like many other people, were sitting in my office wondering when this study on anti-Semitism would come forward, because it's supposed today that they were going to that this committee was going to look at the report. It's a study that I had sat in on for multiple meetings. It's a study that many Canadians came here to this committee to talk about, and since then. Since that study on anti-Semitism, we've seen gunshots into schools in this country. We've seen fire bombings into businesses. We've seen Stats Canada reports that say that 70% of the hate crimes in this country are targeted at less than 2% of the population. And right now, what people watching at home see is that...
Madame la Présidente, en quoi?
Madam Chair,
Every Liberal that's in this is disgusting.
How is that tied to the motion we have on the table? We're asking for a 30-day extension. Not that Mr. Vierson necessarily be the first person to appear, but that we go through the list of witnesses, and so that we'll be able to study it.
Interrupt a conversation about the anti-Semitism study that you're supposed to be having in committee, calling relevance on it? That is worse than this government's inaction on anti-Semitism. Are you actually serious?
Come on now. This is not how we run our committee.
I've
Mr.
actually not
Housefather?
only sat in the meetings, I've actually been sitting in on the report, which that member has not been doing. We're waiting.
Anthony Housesucker, whatever his name is. He's a big-nosed doofus with nothing to say. He sold out his own people a couple of times.
To do that report. We're all here to do that report. It's you guys that are filibustering and stopping us from dealing with the anti-Semitism report. You should be ashamed.
Madam Chair, this is debate.
We'd had this report done.
You voted against his motion.
He has
you
no
voted
motion.
in favor of his motion to delay the report.
You're filibustering a discussion to have a study that is your own private.
Madam Chair, this is my speaking time.
Okay, let's get back to order. Let's be clear here. There was one motion that was put, which every member voted for. And then we moved on to a second motion to extend for 30 days to bring witnesses in. And all I hear is language and talk about other things that may or may not be relevant. So, Ms. Lansman, the floor is to you, but I know you just came in, so it's 12:37 here in Ottawa. I know you haven't been here for the first hour and a half.
You can watch this online.
You
and
can.
That's what I was doing in my office, and that's why I came here to speak to this, because I was expecting the committee to study an anti-Semitism report, just like everybody else who is watching this committee today, just like those witnesses that came here to testify, and just like the members opposite who are pretending that they want to actually, for once, take anti-Semitism seriously in this country. 70% of the hate crimes in this country.
That is out of order, and that is definitely not accurate. I am the chair. You will have to respect me or leave, number one.
A waste of time and blood and skin. Old bag. I don't know what her issue is, but she certainly shouldn't be a chair of an important committee like this one.
Two, I have been here. I have listened since May, when all the witnesses have come on both studies. I have taken it in, all the emotions that have come from the witnesses, from staff, from members, and I'm still standing here. So I deserve the respect as the chair. These are not easy studies, and we would like to conclude them. I agree with you, and I agree with all of you. So I am asking for you to all see a way to do that. If you would like to take a 5-minute break, I have no problem to do that if you think we can come to a conclusion.
Point of order.
Mr. Brock.
Madam Chair, I wholly respect your authority.
Barry Brock is a man on fire.
With respect to this committee, but you have absolutely no standing and no privilege to exclude a member and ask them to leave. She is duly elected, and you do not possess the powers to force her to leave this committee.
Point well taken, thank you. But I also expect every member to respect the position of the chair.
And likewise, I ask the chair to exercise neutrality, as chairs are expected to do, notwithstanding your affiliation to the Liberal Party of Canada, and allow members latitude to get their point across without unnecessary interruptions.
Point of order, Madam Chair. Look, the suggestion that the chair has in any way been impartial at any point during today's meeting or any of these proceedings is factually incorrect, Mr. Brock. And I think that other members of this committee will agree with me on that point. So to bring partisan politics into an accusation against a chair like that is completely unfounded.
They're disgusting. Mark Maloney, you're full of it, man. Phony, baloney, jabroni. You're an idiot.
That's exactly.
I was reminding her.
So listen, I appreciate that, Mr. Maloney. I really do, and I appreciate Mr. Brock, but he wasn't, and if he was, it would be ridiculous based on how I act in this committee or any other committee. So let's move on. I'm okay with it now. Ms. Lanceman, I'll give you back the floor, but please try and be relevant.
I'm going to continue because I couldn't get a point out before you called irrelevance on me, Madam Chair. And I know that you may not like the facts of the matter, but that doesn't mean that you can censor a member and in any way ask a member of the House of Commons to leave a committee. I think that's out of line, and I'm going to put that on the record. All of that to say is that we were going to get to a study on anti-Semitism, where members of this committee heard from witnesses from across the country, and I'll make my point again because I was interrupted a number of times, and since that study, we have only seen this issue get worse in this country. So it is astounding to me that members of this committee who were part of that study, who purport to take this issue seriously, don't want to get to this study. So as such, and to prove that, first of all, I don't have to prove that the issue has gotten worse in this country because it has. All you have to do is look at the encampments on university campuses, the shootings in cities, the violence in the streets. But since the committee doesn't want to get there, I have a motion to prove to everybody at home that this committee is blocking the study of the anti-Semitism.
We have a motion already on the table.
And I have a motion, and I'm allowed to put a motion down, Madam Chair.
Wait now, just give me a minute. Confer, just give me a minute. You cannot put a motion on the floor if we have a motion already.
Oh. I will then ask for unanimous consent to move that the committee proceed to the consideration of the draft report on anti-Semitism and additional measures that could be taken to address the valid fears that are being expressed by Canada's Jewish community, and ones that have been expressed by Canada's Jewish community since that. So I'll ask for unanimous consent to move to this motion to show everybody at home that this party is not serious about this issue, that this government hasn't taken this issue seriously.
So, I'm going to suspend for a few minutes to get clarification as to whether you're even allowed to do that. So suspend a few minutes.
So we'll wrap up the video right there, guys. Very frustrating to see the Liberal playbook being...
So I want you to understand, everyone in this room to understand that and take that and get over your partisan bullshit. Get over it.
Any visual or written materials that she is comfortable with to the committee?
You want me to show On my phone right now? I've got it. We can play it.
It wouldn't be understanding what you're suggesting, Ms. Alexander. I don't think it would be appropriate at this moment, but certainly you could submit it to the chair and to the.
I was screaming
the
for my
committee.
life for Michael to stop. We can play the video if you want. Put it on the big screen.
Oh, yeah. Gang, what's up? Aaron here, Canadian Looney. These committee meetings sometimes are laughable, but this one is not. We've got Kate Alexander as the star witness. Larry Brock, Andrew Lawton are amazing. Mark Miller's amazing too, but in a different way. He's a slime ball. Wait until you see this loser chair. Kate Alexander has a lot to say. Larry Brock, Andrew Lawton are trying to expose the consequences of these liberal policies. Go get him, Kate Alexander. You're a stud to me.
Hey, that's something everyone can enjoy.
Over to you, Mr. Brock.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to all the witnesses for your attendance, particularly the witnesses who are here advocating on behalf of family members and personal experiences. My heart goes out to each and every one of you. In fact, my entire Conservative team will always stand in solidarity over victims, over accused, always. And one thing I want to highlight, and I feel like a broken record when I say this, the number one responsibility for a federal government is to keep us safe. This federal government, under the so-called leadership of Justin Trudeau and now Mark Carney, to you, Ms. Basil Cobb, has failed your daughter, has failed to implement the necessary changes to keep her safe, has failed to bring in mandatory detention in high-risk IPV cases, has failed you in terms of strict enforcement of no-contact orders, has failed you in terms of increasing sentences for violent repeat offenders. For the last 10 years, all that we have heard is promise after promise after promise and no deliverables. It started with C-75 when they made it easier for repeat violent offenders to be recycled through the justice system, catch and release. They followed up with C-5, eliminated mandatory minimum penalties for serious drug offenses, all drug offenses and serious gun offenses. They made it easier for sick mass murderers like Paul Bernardo to be transferred from maximum security to medium security to enjoy the comforts. Because why not? Liberals have always favored the accused. Yeah. And to you, Ms. Wambach, your considerations and concerns, what about that victim ombudsperson? Yeah. For almost a year and a half, this failure of a Liberal government did not appoint that person. And that person right now does not have the necessary tools to keep victims safe. Yeah. So I apologize to you that your government has failed you so miserably. To you, Ms. Alexander, one thing that struck out to me as very important, your phrase, almost as if the government wants this. Can you elaborate on that?
I think it's pretty obvious that we have a problem here, and having, with a lot of my friends here, the social outreach of millions and millions of people saying, what is this government doing? Why are they favoring the criminals? Why are they not holding obviously dangerous people accountable? And I feel like a broken record. I feel like I'm banging my head against the same walls the way that my ex did to me. This government has been an extension of the abuse that my ex committed against me. And I don't understand what color of red they need the blood to be. How many of us have to die? How many times do we have to say, repeat, suffer before we get both sides of the government. This is a nonpartisan issue on the same team so that we put criminals away and protect the public.
Right. And you specifically pointed out Mr. Maloney for making promises to you a couple of years ago. Have other members of the Liberal government made similar promises that were simply not kept?
I tend to use this experience. In April 2024, I sent a letter about my experience in the injustice system to Pierre, to Jagmeet, and to Justin. Pierre responded in 48 hours, Justin responded in 7 months, and Jagmeet never did. And then the committee meeting July 31st, 2024, where the Liberals and the NDP put a motion in about abortion, and I was forced to walk out of a committee meeting just like this, because clearly you have to know at this point that this is wrong and that something needs to be done, and that this leniency to criminals is just going to end up killing more people. Clearly, you know that now. We are screaming it up the rooftops. It's in every single newspaper, every single headline. The media is frustrated with it. Why aren't you doing something about it? Seriously, something serious about it.
Ms. Alexander, and you're absolutely correct. For years, we've heard, it's all in the imagination of the minds of Canadians. It's not our problem, it's the provinces, it's provincial judges, it's lack of space, never accepting responsibility for their own abject failure. Now they brought forth Bill C-14, called the Bail and Sentencing Reform Act. There is one provision that increases sentencing. And you would think, given the myriad of serious violent offenses we have in this country, including IPV, you think they would address it? No. Their focus is on contempt of court. People who are subpoenaed to give evidence and choose not to, they want to increase the penalty from 6 months to 2 years less 1 day. It shows a lack of priority on that side of the House when it comes to your rights. That's what we'll fix.
Thank you, Mr. Brock. Go ahead.
Thank you to all the witnesses, not just for your time here, but for the pieces of your soul you had to put on full display here. I think, certainly I speak for my colleagues, we all felt it. We didn't just hear it, we felt it. And, I'm new to this chamber. I make no comment as to what's happened in previous parliaments, but I certainly came here largely to deal with some of these issues head on. So I thank you very much for helping us do this. Mr. Broadfoot, I met you this summer at one of the vigils for your daughter, and I saw how the community in London had rallied around her and celebrated her life and all that she did in her 17 years. And sadly, we had to acknowledge all that won't be in the decades that should have come of her life. And I know that you never wanted to have to be the advocate you are, but you have, and we are better off for it, and I'm grateful to that. And you made a comment which is so painfully obvious, but I think it bears repeating here, that if your daughter's abuser had been behind bars, your daughter would still be alive. Now, we have heard testimony from some of the academic set, some of the witnesses that our Liberal colleagues have called, who like to put an emphasis on the rights of the accused. But there is only one life. There's only one shot that we have when intimate partner violence is at issue here. So explain your message, if you could, Mr. Broadfoot, to those who believe that this is an abstract discussion about rights and not a life or death issue for women and girls.
Thank you, Mr. Lawton. And again, thank you for being at the vigil this summer. It was greatly appreciated. How do I answer this? I mean, again, it's if you're defenseless, a defenseless woman or girl, and you're being attacked by your male partner, which is, the statistics show that this is it's a high statistical matter when it comes to the males abusing women. How is this individual supposed to try to protect themselves? We look around, even this room, this committee, and We are bigger than the average woman that is here. And how do they do that? How, again, and putting your hands around somebody's neck, again, I'll repeat it, literally saying, I am going to decide whether I'm going to let you continue to breathe. How is that strangulation in itself, if you are charged with it, as my daughter's abuser was on the first offense? How is that individual allowed to walk out of that police station on that same very day? And as Jacqueline mentioned, I have not met her personally, but we are unfortunately family. How are we not monitoring these people? And I use that word very loosely. I prefer the word monsters.
Yeah, I agree. I thank you for that. I'll ask you, Ms. Alexander, I know you've seen at least some of the testimony we've heard to date on the committee, and when you hear people talk in the abstract about the rights of accusers, what does that mean to you?
I wish you could be inside my head right now and know what it feels like to have a 6'3", 225-pound male beating your skull into the floor. I wish you could see the blood that I tried to wash out of my hair in the shower. I wish you could understand the fear of being confined to a space by someone who is double your size. Why in wrestling do we put people in weight classes? Women can't fight this. I asked my stunt double, I said, you're a black belt in all the millions of things. Would you have been able to take him on? She's like, not a chance, Kate. If he, an abuser in that mindset with the adrenaline and the testosterone running through them, if they want to kill you, they will. And I'm alive for the grace of God, of my friends who got a 2-word WhatsApp message. I'm alive because I let him beat me. I had to just let him, because if I fought him back, it got worse. So I just took it and somehow survived. I wish you could understand that, and I'm not allowed to bring props. I got in trouble for that last year. But I can show you the videos and photos of him doing this and the blood splattering. I can show you my black and blue body. I need you to understand that when you're making policy choices. This is not a joke. It's real, and it affects your system for life. And it rips families apart. And it's actually more expensive to do what we're doing right now from a financial level, because there's so many financial consequences for abuse. You can't work, you can't function properly, and it costs billions of dollars to not deal with these individuals properly. Billions of dollars. We need to do better, because this is real. And I'm alive by the grace of God. Unfortunately, Brianna, unfortunately, Madison is not. But I know what their daughters went through. I just live to tell the tale. So I want you to understand, everyone in this room to understand that, and take that and get over your partisan bullshit. Get over it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I may, can we request that Ms. Alexander provides any visual or written materials that she is comfortable with to the committee?
You want me to show it on my phone right now?
No,
I've got it. We can play it.
it wouldn't be understanding what you're suggesting, Ms. Alexander. I don't think it would be appropriate at this moment, but certainly you could submit it to the chair and to the.
I was screaming for my
committee.
life for Michael to stop. We can play the video if you want. Put it on the big screen.
Thank you. Ms. Dillon for 6 minutes.
Oh, yeah. We'll wrap it up right there, gang. My name's Aaron. This is Canadian Looney. We cover Canadian federal politics right here. I work very hard at this channel. I spend 84 hours a week at least at this because it takes a long time to watch all of the real politics.
So I'm going to be delivering a series of rapid-fire questions at you. I'll be asking whether you agree with the statement or not. It would elicit a yes or a no. I'm not seeking an explanation.
Everyone has an opinion about Canadian federal politics. Oh, yeah. All right, guys, does that ever sound promising? MP Larry Brock with a list of rapid-fire questions, yes or no answers. Do you think that's how it's going to go? Let's take a peek. Larry Brock is one of our favorites to watch on here. He's engaging, entertaining, and sharp as a razor blade. Let's check out Larry and his rapid fire questions. Let's see if we get any yes or no answers. Let's take a peek.
Mr. Brock.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, witnesses. Thank you for your attendance. I am primarily going to start with you, Ms. Thomas. I'm going to be delivering a series of rapid-fire questions at you. I'll be asking whether you agree with the statement or not. It would elicit a yes or a no. I'm not seeking an explanation. You'd agree with me that this country is bound by the rule of law?
Yes.
That every Canadian, including the Prime Minister, his cabinet, senior public servants, and most importantly, the Department of Justice is also bound by the rule of law.
Yes.
And no one, including the Prime Minister, is above that law, correct?
Correct.
Now, I'm going to be delivering a series of statements from former Cabinet Minister Pierre, the chief architect of the Emergencies Act, that this committee should press for any information to help Canadians understand the rationale for invocation and test against both the facts and the deliberately high threshold that is required. Do you believe that?
Yes.
That the Emergencies Act is a blunt instrument because it is used where contingencies can't be managed effectively in any other way. Agree?
The Emergency Act is a charter compliant.
Do you agree?
It's more complex than a yes/no
Thank
answer.
you. That if invoking the Act made law enforcement easier, the issue is whether the deliberately high threshold was met, not whether the powers given were useful, or in other words, whether the powers they already had could have resolved the problem. Do you agree with that?
That's how it was used.
That in relation to freezing bank accounts of people associated with the protests, new government powers should be conferred in a time of calm, not by regulation drawn up in a crisis. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
That police were called upon to deal with a breakdown in our political system. Agree?
No.
That if government were to avoid much more serious emergencies in the future, they must restore a civility to our politics that allows us once again to disagree strongly on issues without seeing one another as enemies. Agree?
I'm not a politician.
Do you agree?
I would agree, but I'm not a politician.
Thank you. That our body politic is wounded at the present time. We need to heal those wounds. We need to do it by treating each other as Canadians with respect. We need to do it in such a way that sets aside partisan differences and puts the national interest first. Do you agree with that statement?
Yes.
That the obligation of Parliament at this point is to do everything it can to try and heal the divisions that have been created. Agree?
I'm not a parliamentarian.
Would you agree with me that one of the most important roles of a Prime Minister is to unite Canadians and not divide them by engaging in name-calling?
The Prime
you agree?
Minister should protect Canadians.
Do you agree?
Protect Canadians.
Do you agree that the Prime Minister should not be name-calling?
I'm not going to comment on that.
Okay. You are aware at the inquiry the Prime Minister stated that he did not call people who are unvaccinated names. You aware of that statement?
Yes, I heard that statement.
Would you agree with me that the Prime Minister stated on Quebec television in September 2021 that there are people who are fiercely opposed to vaccination, who do not believe in science, who are misogynistic, often are racist, that there are not many of them, but they take up a lot of space? As a leader, as a country, do we tolerate these people or do we say, come on? He repeated those same talking points during the unnecessary 2021 federal election. Do you agree that he made those statements?
I did not personally hear those statements, with apologies.
Would you agree with me that either the Prime Minister has a problem, a significant problem with his memory, or he deliberately and intentionally misled the inquiry?
Madam Chair, I don't think that this is fair questioning.
Everyone has an opinion about Canadian federal politics.
Oh, yeah.
Jaws Raj Shalon exposes Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland's cluelessness.
Mr. Freeland, and now we will go to members' questions in the first round. Each party will have up to 6 minutes. We are starting with MP Holland, please.
Thank you, Chair. Minister, do you have faith in the parliamentary budgeting officer?
Certainly, and I also have faith in the Calgary business community. I was in Calgary just 6 days ago, and I met with representatives of the oil and gas sector and of the renewable sector, and they told me specifically, get Bill C-59 passed now. We need those tax credits. I know you're an MP from Calgary, so I thought you'd like to know that.
Minister.
It's not a great day, but it's a great day for a walk, you know? Anyways, we're going to be walking and talking about this one.
So, to Canadians who are watching, Justin Trudeau and Tom Clark fleeced the taxpayers, and they tried to cover it up. So, Minister, do you think it's appropriate for Justin Trudeau to have awarded his media pal, Tom Clark, with such a flagrant waste of tax dollars, especially during this cost of living crisis that we're facing?
Did you personally, Minister, become involved in the process to cover up for Justin Trudeau's close friend, Tom Clark? Yes or no?
But you spoke in your opening statement about how security is at a pivotal moment in the history of Canada, in the history of the world, and yet there is so much that you don't know. I'm here to tell you today, Canadians expect you to know.
All of us go to Florida. We don't.
Let's go to Florida, baby.
Hey gang, what's up? Just Aaron right here, Canadian Looney. We have a treat. We have Melanie Joly, Minister of Affairs, Trudeau's girl, the Florida girl, the Minister of Blow, like Minister of Foreign Affairs, who doesn't do a very good job. She's going to be testifying in front of committee. We've got Michael Barrett's going to take her apart. We've got Larry Brock's going to put questions, can't get straight answers. Of course, we have Liberals that are trying to protect her with their woke tactics. Doesn't work in this one. Talking about a $9 million purchase in New York at an inappropriate time, and Melanie cannot really explain it to Canadians. She gives answers, kind of. They're weak. She speaks French too often when she's really like going to tell a very misleading tale. She'll speak French when she's asked a question in English. Anyways, this girl is just zipping along. Larry Brock and Michael Barrett are going to tear her apart. Let's take a look. Here, I'll show you. It's right over here. Let's get into the video. Everyone has an opinion about Canadian federal politics.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Minister. We'll start with Mr. Barrett for 6 minutes, please.
New documents reported in Politico today reveal that Tom Clark lied during his appearance before this committee. We know that he personally complained that his taxpayer-funded residence wasn't up to his standards because it didn't have a luxury kitchen or the perfect floor plan. And after Tom Clark complained, Justin Trudeau rewarded his friend and media pal with a new luxury condo at 4 times the cost to taxpayers. So to Canadians who are watching, Justin Trudeau and Tom Clark fleeced the taxpayers, and they tried to cover it up. So, Minister, do you think it's appropriate for Justin Trudeau to have awarded his media pal, Tom Clark, with such a flagrant waste of tax dollars, especially during this cost of living crisis that we're facing?
One of the funniest things about Melanie Joly is that she has this tactic where she calls people by their first name to try to like bring some kind of familiarity or friendship or something. Michael, Larry, Michael. She does it all the time. All the time. To reporters, to other politicians, to the opposition, whoever she needs something from. If she's calling you by her first name, she's backed into a corner, for certain. I've used this tactic. I like it. But I don't like seeing Melanie Joly use it. It's a good move, though.
So, before you interrupt me, because I know, Michael, that's a strategy you use, I really think that there are 3 things. First, I think that Canadians are getting good value for money because there will be $7 million in Canadian taxpayers' savings. Second, the process was respected at all times. And thirdly, I profoundly believe that more than ever, as the American people are going through an important election today, we need to invest in our presence in the U.S. So I really hope, Michael, that you agree with me, because I know your riding is next to the U.S. and you have 2 bridges that permit fantastic workers going through it, truck drivers exporting and importing millions of dollars
That was sufficient
every
time for you
day
to not answer the
between
question,
Canada
Minister.
and U.S.
So
I've answered your question.
Is it common for your department to spend nearly $10 million on luxury condos without you personally approving?
So first and foremost, to answer your question, this was not a political decision because it was an operational decision. And you had numerous people, officials of mine, that came to see you and said that. So these are the facts, and I really hope that you can...
When did you approve the $9 million
this is again
luxury
the strategy that Michael uses, which is to interrupt me.
Clark.
Michael, can you just stop? I'll just finish. I promise it won't be long. I just want to finish my sentence.
Point of order, Chair.
Yep. Mr. Bear?
Okay. So, in spite of the minister's hostile response to my first question, she was afforded equal time to the amount of time that I posed the question, even though she didn't answer it. I asked a second question, and she was afforded equal amount of time to the length of the question, and she was able to do with that what she wished. Now, if the minister wants to interrupt me, that, of course, is not in order at this committee. So, Chair, could you please provide clarification to the minister that she will be afforded the same amount of time to respond as the amount of time that I posed the question?
MP Michael Barrett from Ontario is pretty intense, eh? He goes at Jolie really hard. Puts the questions right to this woman who doesn't seem to really be able to answer them directly. Always stuttering, stammering, and
Headline reads, Minister Guilbeault holds financial interest in a firm linked to a controversial federal fund. His office flatly refuses to give details on the subject. As we all know, Minister Guilbeault has held a financial interest in Cycle Capital. Cycle Capital has received well over $600 million. Headline reads, Minister Guilbeault holds financial interest in a firm linked to a controversial federal fund. His office flatly refuses to give details on the subject. As we all know, Minister Guilbeault has...
We're going to wrap it up right there, gang. Something is going wrong with my computer. Anyhow, have a great weekend. Aaron, Kennedy, and Looney, smash the like, hit subscribe. Thank you. Good to see you, Rory. Good afternoon. Always good to see a buddy. Kirk, Rhonda, everybody. That's it. We're out. We'll go out on a little romper room, as we usually like to do. Where is this?
You should do exercises. That's important to our good health. And friends, tomorrow we are going to be visiting with a fisherman who will tell us about his very enjoyable hobby. Now, I would like to see you all through our magic mirror. Romper bumper, stomper boo, tell me, do. Magic mirror, please tell me today, did all of my friends have fun at play? I see all of my friends in Alberta. It's nice to see you. And I see Dan and Vivian. I see Marlon and Mona. I see Catherine and Harley. I see Anne and Elizabeth and Jane. I see Bert and Nicole. And I see you too. I hope to see you tomorrow, right here in Romper Room.
Ding dong, knock knock, hey daddy do. Bing bong, tick tock, bebop boom.
Kick off your weekend with exciting CFL action when the Edmonton Eskimos tackle the BC Lions in Vancouver. Tomorrow night at 10:30 on CFTO TV.